A human kidney was left in an Uber last Tuesday. The driver didn't notice for 3 hours, but that's not even close to being the strangest thing passengers have abandoned in rideshares. And what I found at number 7 will make you question everything. 1. Your phone buzzes with notifications, music plays through your headphones, and you're scrolling through social media during that late-night Uber ride home. The car pulls up to your destination, you grab your bag, slam the door, and head inside. 20 minutes later, pure panic sets in. Where's your phone? It's sitting right there in that Uber's back seat, probably wedging itself deeper between the cushions as the driver picks up their next passenger. Phones claim the top spot as the most forgotten item in Ubers worldwide. We're talking about over 20% of all lost items reported through rideshare platforms. That's 1 in every 5 lost items being someone's lifeline to the world. The statistics get even more depressing when you realize most phones are never reunited with their owners. Think about it. Without your phone, how exactly are you supposed to contact the driver or navigate the lost item system? Late-night rides create the perfect storm for phone forgetfulness. Your judgment gets cloudy after a few drinks, exhaustion kicks in from a long day, or you're just distracted by conversation with friends. Cities like New York and Miami report the highest rates of lost phones, probably because people are rushing between venues, grabbing quick rides, and living that fast-paced urban lifestyle where multitasking becomes second nature. The cruel irony: your phone contains your entire digital life, contacts, photos, work emails, banking apps, yet it's the easiest thing to leave behind. Most people don't realize it's missing until they instinctively reach for it hours later, only to grab empty pockets and feel that sinking sensation in their stomach. 2. Wallets hit different when they go missing. We're talking about that leather rectangle that holds your entire life together: cash, credit cards, driver's license, maybe that crumpled receipt from 3 months ago you swore you'd need someday. Second place on the global lost and found leaderboard, but first place in causing absolute panic. The moment riders realize their wallet vanished. Pure chaos. Unlike a forgotten phone charger, this isn't something you shrug off until tomorrow. Your identity lives in that thing. Can't buy coffee without cards. Can't prove you're you without ID. Can't even get another Uber home because plot twist, your payment method just drove away in someone else's back seat. Uber's lost item system gets hammered with wallet reports. Drivers know the drill by now. That frantic call always starts the same way: please tell me you found a brown wallet, sometimes black, occasionally that weird canvas one your aunt gave you for Christmas. Then there's the awkward dance of proving ownership. What's in it? Drivers ask. Cue the mental inventory. My Costco card. Definitely some random business cards. And probably a photo of my dog from 2019. The relief in someone's voice when everything matches. Priceless. But here's the kicker. Wallets trigger the fastest response times. Phone, maybe tomorrow. Sunglasses, next week if ever. Wallet, people will cross 3 boroughs at midnight to get that thing back, because without it you're basically a ghost trying to navigate modern society. No cash, no cards, no proof you exist. 3. Keys disappear from Uber rides like socks from washing machines, but unlike your missing sock, losing your keys creates an instant crisis that can't wait until tomorrow. House keys, car keys, office keys, they all vanish with stunning regularity, leaving riders stranded outside their own lives. The numbers tell a frustrating story. Keys rank as the 3rd most forgotten item in rideshares worldwide, accounting for roughly 15% of all lost items reported through Uber's system. What makes this particularly maddening? Most key losses happen within 5 blocks of the rider's destination. You're literally almost home when disaster strikes. Key rings loaded with quirky charms seem especially prone to disappearing. That miniature rubber duck or bottle opener keychain you thought made your keys impossible to lose. Well, apparently not. Drivers report finding everything from tiny flashlights to miniature Swiss Army knives attached to abandoned key sets. Some key rings are so loaded with accessories they look like a janitor's collection. Then there's the expense factor. Locksmith calls spike dramatically in major cities during peak Uber hours, typically between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. on weekends. Emergency lockout services can cost anywhere from $150 to $400, depending on your location and the complexity of your locks. That $15 Uber ride just became a $300 nightmare. And the weird part is some riders become repeat offenders. Uber's data shows certain users report lost keys multiple times per year, suggesting either incredible bad luck or a fundamental inability to keep track of small metal objects. One user in Chicago reportedly lost keys in Ubers 6 times in 8 months. 4. Business travelers are the biggest culprits when it comes to leaving suitcases behind. They're rushing through airport pickups, juggling phone calls about delayed flights, and completely forgetting about that black roller bag in the trunk. The irony, these are the same people who triple-check their boarding passes and arrive at the gate 2 hours early. Most forgotten luggage incidents happen within a 5-mile radius of major airports. LAX, JFK, and Miami International see the highest rates of abandoned bags in Ubers. Drivers often don't realize there's luggage until their next passenger points it out hours later. By then, that stressed-out traveler is already at their gate, patting their pockets and having a complete meltdown. The contents of these forgotten bags tell interesting stories. Some contain nothing but dirty laundry from a week-long conference. Others hold expensive laptops, presentation materials, or that lucky tie worn to every important meeting. One driver in Chicago found a suitcase filled entirely with different types of mustard, apparently a food blogger's research materials. Large suitcases are actually easier for drivers to spot and return compared to smaller items. The bright colors and distinctive shapes make them hard to miss during vehicle inspections. But here's the weird part: many travelers don't report missing luggage for hours, sometimes even a full day. They assume it's still at the hotel or got loaded onto the wrong shuttle. The return rate for luggage is surprisingly high, around 70%. Airlines have trained people to expect their bags back, so they're more likely to file claims through Uber's lost item system. 5. Headphones might seem like they'd stay put, but they're actually masters of the vanishing act. Whether we're talking about those tiny wireless earbuds that cost more than some people's rent or the massive over-ear cans that DJs love, they disappear at exactly the same rate. That's the weird part about it. The data shows something pretty fascinating here. High-end brands like AirPods Pro and Bose Quiet Comfort don't magically stick around better than cheaper alternatives. A $300 pair of headphones gets left behind just as often as the $20 gas station specials. Money doesn't buy memory, apparently. But here's where it gets interesting. Most headphone losses happen during those frantic rush hour exits. You know the drill. Traffic's backing up, your driver's getting antsy, and you're juggling your phone, coffee, and whatever else while trying to get out fast. Those noise-canceling headphones you wore to block out the city chaos. They're probably sliding between the seat cushions right about now. Commuter rides are headphone graveyards. Morning commutes to work account for nearly 40% of all reported headphone losses in major cities. People put them on, zone out during the ride, then bolt for their office building without a second thought. The afternoon commute home, slightly better but not by much. Then there's the psychological factor nobody talks about. When you're wearing noise-canceling headphones, you're literally blocking out the world around you. That includes blocking out your own awareness of taking them off and setting them down. It's like your brain goes into autopilot mode, and boom, another expensive pair bites the dust. 6. Prescription glasses and trendy sunglasses disappear from Uber rides at an alarming rate. Both types vanish equally often, creating massive headaches for riders who literally can't see without them. The cruel irony: people need their glasses to spot their glasses, making recovery nearly impossible once they're gone. Most glasses slip off when passengers slide across leather seats or fall from shirt pockets during quick exits. Back pockets become death traps for expensive frames. One moment you're fumbling for your phone to rate the driver, the next moment your $200 designer specs are wedged between seat cushions, destined for the lost and found graveyard. Then there's the timing problem. Glasses get forgotten right before important meetings, job interviews, or dates. Nothing kills confidence like squinting through a presentation because you left your only pair of reading glasses in a stranger's Honda Civic. Students suffer the most, losing glasses during exam weeks when they need perfect vision to read tiny test questions. The financial sting varies wildly. Gas station readers cost $10 to replace, while custom progressive lenses can hit $300 or more. Insurance might cover replacements, but not the missed appointments or awkward explanations about why you're holding menus 2 inches from your face. And the weird part is how common this problem has become. Eye doctors report spikes in emergency replacement requests from patients who lost them in a rideshare. Some people develop elaborate backup systems, keeping spare pairs everywhere except the one place they actually need them. Makes sense, right? 7. Clothing items account for millions of lost and found cases every year across rideshare platforms worldwide. Jackets lead the pack by a massive margin, followed closely by sweaters and hoodies. When temperatures drop or rain starts pouring, passengers layer up before getting into their rides. But here's the thing: once they're warm and cozy inside the car, off comes that extra layer. The pattern becomes crystal clear when you look at seasonal data. October through March sees clothing losses spike by over 300% compared to summer months. Party seasons make it even worse. New Year's Eve alone generates enough forgotten coats to fill a department store. Wedding season brings its own chaos, with bridesmaids leaving shawls and groomsmen abandoning suit jackets after long celebration nights. Then there's the one too many drinks factor. Late-night rides from bars and clubs produce the highest clothing loss rates. Passengers stumble out, focused on getting home safely, completely forgetting they draped their expensive leather jacket over the seat. Makes sense, right? Your priorities shift when you're tired and maybe a little tipsy. The return rate for clothing tells a depressing story. Less than 15% of forgotten garments ever make it back to their owners. Unlike phones or wallets, clothes don't have built-in tracking systems or urgent replacement needs. That $200 designer jacket becomes another driver's problem to solve. Some drivers donate unclaimed items to charity after a few weeks. Others toss them in lost property bins that already overflow with abandoned hoodies, scarves, and countless single gloves from passengers who'll never see them again. 8. Passports might seem like the one document you'd never forget, but tell that to the thousands of travelers who've left theirs behind in rideshare cars. Airport runs are where these precious blue booklets disappear most often. One minute you're checking your boarding pass, the next you're at security realizing your passport is sliding around the back seat of an Uber somewhere across town. The panic hits differently when it's your passport. Missing a phone sucks, but missing your passport can derail entire vacation plans. Flights get rescheduled, hotels get cancelled. That romantic getaway to Paris, more like a romantic evening spent at the passport office filing emergency paperwork. Some travelers have discovered their missing passport just hours before international departures, turning what should be exciting trips into frantic races against time. Then there's the international nightmare scenario. Losing your passport in a foreign city creates a whole different level of stress. You're stuck navigating consulates in languages you don't speak, trying to explain to officials that yes, you really did forget your most important document in a taxi. Some consulates have gotten surprisingly good at helping retrieve passports from rideshare lost and found departments, but the process can take days. The strange thing about lost passports, they sometimes surface months later in taxi company warehouses, perfectly preserved but completely useless to travelers who've already gotten replacements. Drivers treat them like gold when found, knowing exactly how valuable they are. But by then most owners have moved on, leaving these little books of international freedom gathering dust in lost property bins across the world. 9. Small, sleek, and surprisingly slippery, vapes and e-cigarettes have earned their spot as one of the most commonly forgotten items in rideshare vehicles. These pocket-sized devices vanish faster than morning fog, often sliding between seat cushions or rolling under floor mats during those inevitable late-night rides home. Young adults make up the majority of vape-forgetting culprits. Makes sense, right? After a night out with friends, priorities shift to getting home safely, rather than remembering every gadget that tagged along for the adventure. The combination of dim car lighting and hurried exits creates the perfect storm for tiny tech to disappear. Then there's the timing factor. Most vapes go missing during evening hours, particularly after parties, concerts, or social gatherings. When adrenaline is high and conversations are flowing, these small devices become afterthoughts until the next morning brings that familiar pat-down panic. But here's where it gets interesting. Disposable vapes outnumber premium models in lost and found reports by a significant margin. Cheap, colorful disposables get tossed aside mentally because replacement costs seem minimal. Meanwhile, expensive vaporizers with custom settings and hefty price tags rarely stay forgotten for long. The reality is brutal though. Most vapes never reunite with their owners. Unlike phones or wallets that trigger immediate panic, a missing vape might not register until hours later. By then, the driver has moved on to dozens of other passengers, and that little device has likely found a permanent home in the vehicle's hidden corners. Well, at least someone's cloud-chasing days are numbered. 10. Water bottles might seem boring compared to phones or wallets, but they're quietly becoming one of the most forgotten items in rideshares. Nearly every health-conscious rider carries one these days. Gym goers, office workers, students, everyone's got their trusty bottle. And guess what? They're leaving them behind more than ever. The stats tell a fascinating story. Most forgotten water bottles are the expensive branded ones. Think Hydro Flask, Yeti, or those trendy Stanley cups that cost $40. People spend serious money on these things, then forget them like they're disposable. The irony hits hard when you realize riders buy reusable bottles to help the environment, then abandon them in cars across the city. Then there's the timing factor. Post-gym rides are the absolute worst for water bottle losses. Riders are exhausted, sweaty, and thinking about their next shower. They grab their gym bag, maybe their phone, and completely miss that premium bottle rolling under the seat. The same pattern happens after hiking trips or long walks in the park. Location matters too. These bottles love hiding in door pockets and under seats. Drivers find them days later, sometimes still half full with whatever protein shake or flavored water was inside. Some bottles have motivational quotes printed on them. "Stay hydrated," they proclaim, while sitting forgotten in a lost and found box. The weird part is how rarely people come back for them. Unlike phones or wallets, water bottles feel replaceable. But at $30 to $50 each, these forgotten bottles add up to real money over time. 11. Your iPad slips between the seat cushions during that bumpy ride to the airport. The Kindle you were reading gets wedged under the driver's seat when you lean forward to grab your coffee. These digital companions have become some of the most heartbreaking items left behind in rideshare vehicles across the globe. What makes tablets and e-readers particularly devastating to lose? Well, they're not just expensive gadgets anymore. They're portable libraries, work presentations, and entertainment centers all rolled into one sleek package. Unlike phones that people check obsessively, these devices often get tucked away mid-ride and forgotten in the rush to catch flights or make meetings. The recovery statistics paint a grim picture. Most tablets contain sensitive work documents or personal photos that owners desperately want back. But here's the kicker. These devices are usually locked with passwords, making it nearly impossible for drivers or lost and found departments to contact the rightful owner directly. No convenient call mom option like you might find on an unlocked phone. Business travelers represent the highest risk group for tablet losses. They're juggling laptops, tablets, and phones while managing tight schedules. Something's bound to slip through the cracks. Family outings also see a spike in e-reader losses, especially when kids are involved and chaos levels run high. The window for recovery shrinks fast with these items. Unlike a water bottle that might sit unnoticed for days, a forgotten tablet usually gets reported within hours. The owner realizes their digital lifeline is missing, but by then, the driver might already be 3 rides deep into their shift with no memory of which passenger left what behind. 12. Cameras disappear from Uber seats more often than you'd think. Digital cameras, film cameras, even those chunky professional DSLRs that cost more than most people's rent. The heartbreaking part, those memory cards packed with vacation photos, family gatherings, or once-in-a-lifetime moments that'll never be recreated. Tourist areas see the highest camera loss rates. Makes sense, right? People are distracted, tired from walking around all day, juggling shopping bags and trying to remember which hotel they're staying at. That expensive camera they've been clutching all day suddenly becomes an afterthought when the Uber pulls up. But here's what's really wild. Most riders don't even realize their camera's gone until hours later. They're back at the hotel, ready to upload those sunset shots, and boom, empty hands. The panic sets in fast because unlike losing your phone, there's no Find My Camera app to save the day. Recovery rates for cameras are brutally low. Compact cameras look like any other small electronic device to drivers. They might assume it's a phone charger or some random gadget. High-end cameras, well, let's just say the temptation factor goes way up when something's worth $2,000 and sitting unclaimed for days. The weird part is how specific camera losses get. Wedding photographers losing backup cameras after reception rides. Travel bloggers abandoning their gear after long flight connections. Even local photographers forget their equipment after portrait sessions in the city. Each lost camera represents hours of work, memories, and expensive replacement costs that insurance rarely covers fully. 13. Jewelry disappears from Uber rides more often than most people realize, and the stories behind these glittering losses are surprisingly common. Earrings slip out during phone calls. Necklaces unhook while passengers lean forward to give directions. Watches slide off wrists when riders check their phones one last time before stepping out. The real challenge with lost jewelry isn't finding it. Drivers actually spot rings and bracelets pretty easily when they're cleaning between rides. The problem is proving ownership. How do you describe a silver chain or a pair of stud earrings in enough detail to convince someone they belong to you? Most jewelry looks similar to untrained eyes, and without photos or receipts, returning these items becomes nearly impossible. Late-night rides produce the highest jewelry loss rates. Something about dim lighting and rushed exits creates perfect conditions for accessories to vanish. Partygoers removing heavy earrings during long rides home. wedding guests loosening tight bracelets after hours of dancing, concert attendees pulling off jewelry that caught on clothing or got uncomfortable during shows. Value ranges create interesting dynamics too. Costume jewelry rarely gets claimed. Riders figure it's cheaper to replace than retrieve. But family heirlooms, those generate desperate phone calls and detailed emails to Uber support. Drivers have found everything from $5 fashion rings to diamond engagement rings worth thousands. The weird part is how jewelry seems to hide in cars. Unlike phones or wallets that sit obviously on seats, rings roll under floor mats. Earrings lodge between cushions. Bracelets wrap around seat adjustment levers. Some drivers discover jewelry weeks later during deep cleaning, long after any reasonable chance of reuniting items with their owners. 14. Mannequin heads might sound like something straight out of a horror movie, but they're surprisingly common lost items in rideshares. Hairstylists and beauty school students regularly transport these practice heads to and from work. Some come with real human hair attached, making them look disturbingly lifelike when glimpsed in a rearview mirror. Drivers have reported genuine moments of panic when they thought they had an unconscious passenger in their back seat. The realistic features and hair can be pretty convincing in dim lighting. But here's the thing, these aren't just creepy props. Professional stylists invest serious money in quality mannequin heads, sometimes spending hundreds of dollars on ones with premium human hair. Then there are the art students and photographers who use them for creative projects. They'll haul these heads around for sculpture classes or photo shoots, treating them like any other piece of equipment. The problem comes when they're rushing out after a long session and completely forget their silent passenger. What makes this even more interesting is how drivers react. Some refuse to touch them, thinking they're dealing with something supernatural. Others have gotten so startled they've called the police, convinced they've stumbled onto a crime scene. The mannequin heads just sit there, perfectly still, with their glassy eyes staring at nothing. Recovery rates are actually pretty high for these items. Why? They're impossible to ignore and expensive to replace. Plus, stylists need them for work the next day. Makes sense, right? 15. Live turtles getting left behind in rideshares sounds like something from a comedy sketch, but it happens more than you'd think. These slow-moving passengers occasionally find themselves stranded when their human companions rush out of cars, completely forgetting their shelled friends. Most incidents occur during short trips around the city, where riders are juggling multiple errands and lose track of their reptilian cargo. The problem gets worse when pet owners transport their turtles without proper carriers or cages. A loose turtle can easily slip under a seat or hide in a corner, making them nearly invisible during those hurried exits. Drivers often don't notice their unexpected passenger until they're cleaning the car hours later. Picture the surprise when you're vacuuming floor mats and discover a small head poking out from under the seat. Then there's the return process, which creates its own complications. Some turtles get reunited with their owners through the standard lost and found system, but the timeline matters more than with typical forgotten items. These aren't smartphones that can wait a few days in storage. Turtles need food, water, and proper temperature control. Drivers who find abandoned reptiles face an immediate responsibility they never signed up for. But here's where things get interesting. Some drivers, after failed attempts to contact the original owner, end up adopting these unexpected guests permanently. What starts as a temporary babysitting situation turns into long-term pet ownership. These accidental adoptions create surprisingly heartwarming stories, though it's probably not the reunion process rideshare companies had in mind when designing their lost item policies. 16. Viking drinking horns showing up in Ubers. Sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, but it happens more often than you'd think. These ceremonial vessels pop up in lost and found offices across major cities, usually after costume parties or medieval reenactment events. The horns are genuine conversation starters when drivers discover them wedged between seats or rolling around in the trunk. Most people don't just casually own a Viking drinking horn. They're typically handcrafted pieces made from real animal horns, often decorated with intricate metalwork or leather strapping. Some cost hundreds of dollars and take weeks to arrive from specialty craftsmen. When someone loses one of these beauties, they usually realize it pretty quickly. The embarrassment factor runs high with this particular item. Picture calling your Uber driver to ask if they found your ancient Norse drinking vessel. It's not exactly like asking about forgotten sunglasses. Drivers often describe feeling confused when they first spot these curved, horn-shaped objects. Some initially mistake them for musical instruments or weird art pieces, Renaissance festivals and Halloween parties generate most of these losses. People get caught up in the excitement of their medieval personas, then rush out of their rides without checking the back seat. The horns blend into dark car interiors surprisingly well, despite their unique shape. What makes these items memorable isn't just their rarity. When riders do come back to claim them, they're usually still partially in character, sheepishly explaining their hobby or event. Drivers report that Viking horn retrievals make for some of their most interesting customer interactions of the year. 17. Divorce papers rank among the most emotionally charged items left behind in rideshare vehicles. These aren't just forgotten documents, they're often the result of stress, exhaustion, and life-altering moments that leave people scattered and unfocused. The irony: you're finally free from your ex, but now you're tied to an Uber driver who has your most private legal affairs sitting in their back seat. Most divorce papers get abandoned after courthouse visits or lawyer meetings. Riders climb into cars feeling drained, overwhelmed, or sometimes relieved. They clutch folders full of custody agreements, asset divisions, and restraining orders. Then they get distracted by a phone call or text message. Before they know it, they're standing on the sidewalk watching their ride disappear with everything that legally defines their new single life. But here's where things get complicated for drivers. What do you do when you find someone's divorce decree? These documents contain social security numbers, addresses, financial information, and details about children. Some drivers worry about identity theft. Others feel awkward contacting riders about such personal matters. A few have admitted they're not sure if they should call the police or just use Uber's lost and found system. The strangest part: many divorce papers never get reclaimed. People sometimes seem relieved to lose the paperwork, even though they'll need copies later. Maybe it's psychological, like losing the documents means losing the whole messy experience. Well, until they need proof of their divorce status for dating apps or tax filings. 18. Hoverboards sound futuristic, but they're surprisingly common in Uber lost and found reports. These electric personal transporters get left behind more often than you'd think. Young riders between 16 and 25 make up most of these forgetful passengers. The gadgets usually cost between $100 and $800, making them expensive mistakes. Most hoverboard losses happen when riders pack multiple items for trips. They'll stuff backpacks, shopping bags, and their hoverboard into the car, then rush out forgetting the bulkiest item. Crazy, right? The brain focuses on grabbing smaller objects while ignoring the obvious ones. Storage becomes a nightmare for drivers. Hoverboards don't fit easily in most car trunks. Some stick out awkwardly, others won't fit at all. Drivers end up shoving them in back seats or leaving them with Uber's lost item services. The weird part is how heavy these things actually are. What looks like a lightweight gadget weighs 20–30 pounds. Unlike other lost items, some drivers actually return hoverboards directly to passengers. The size makes them impossible to ignore or accidentally keep. Plus, most riders realize their mistake within hours. Nothing like arriving home and remembering you left your $400 ride outside. Weather affects hoverboard losses too. Rainy days see more forgotten boards since riders focus on staying dry. They'll grab umbrellas and jackets while leaving their transportation device behind. Spring and summer show the highest loss rates when more people actually use these things. College towns report especially high numbers during move-in and move-out periods. 19. Mattresses rank among the most bizarre items ever forgotten in rideshare vehicles. These aren't your typical pocket-sized phone or wallet situations. We're talking about full-sized sleeping surfaces that somehow slip people's minds during what must be incredibly chaotic moving experiences. The logistics alone boggle the mind. How do you cram a mattress into an Uber in the first place? Most drivers probably question their life choices when someone shows up with a queen-size memory foam situation. Yet, it happens more often than you'd think. Especially during late-night apartment moves when people are exhausted and making questionable decisions. Then there's the awkward moment when riders actually exit the vehicle and somehow forget they brought their entire bed along for the ride. Maybe they're distracted by keys, boxes, or the stress of moving day. But forgetting where you sleep, that's next-level forgetfulness right there. Drivers face a real dilemma with abandoned mattresses. Where exactly do you store a California King until someone claims it? Most vehicles don't have mattress-sized storage compartments. Some mattresses end up partially blocking car doors or taking up entire back seats for days. The return process becomes equally complicated. Unlike a phone that fits in your pocket, Reuniting people with their forgotten sleep surfaces requires serious coordination. Some drivers have reportedly driven directly to customers' new addresses just to return these bulky bedroom essentials. Well, at least mattresses are hard to miss during vehicle inspections. Drivers usually spot them immediately, unlike those sneaky earbuds that hide in seat cracks for weeks. 20. Green rubber ears shaped like Shrek's head might sound like something only kids would lose. But you'd be wrong. Adults forget these quirky accessories just as often, especially after costume parties and comic conventions. The bright green color makes them impossible to miss sitting on a back seat, yet somehow riders walk away without them every single weekend. Most drivers discover Shrek ears after dropping off groups coming back from festivals or themed events. The ears usually end up wedged between seat cushions or rolled under floor mats. What's funny is how these cartoon-style accessories puzzle drivers who've never seen the movies. Some think they're broken headphones or weird car decorations left by previous passengers. Then there's the awkward moment when someone actually calls to retrieve their Shrek ears. Riders often sound embarrassed explaining what they lost, stumbling over descriptions like green pointy things or costume ears that look like an ogre. The conversation gets even stranger when drivers ask follow-up questions about size or brand, as if there's a whole market of competing Shrek ear manufacturers. Despite being easy to spot, these novelty items rarely get claimed. Most sit in lost and found boxes for months, gathering dust alongside forgotten phone chargers and single gloves. Drivers sometimes joke about the random collection of cartoon ears they've accumulated over the years. The real mystery isn't why people buy Shrek ears in the first place, but why they care so little about getting them back once the party's over. 21. DVDs in 2024. You'd think they went extinct with the dinosaurs. But here's the thing, someone actually left behind 100 DVDs in an Uber. Not one, not 5. 100 discs of cinematic history scattered across the back seat like confetti from a blockbuster explosion. The driver probably thought he'd discovered buried treasure. Or maybe he wondered if he'd accidentally picked up a time traveler from 2005, who still owns 100 physical DVDs when Netflix exists. Well, apparently more people than you'd expect. These collections usually belong to older riders who never made the streaming switch, or film enthusiasts who collect rare editions that streaming services don't carry. What's fascinating is the variety these collections contain. Classic movies mixed with obscure foreign films. Disney animations next to indie documentaries. Some collections are worth serious money. First edition releases, director's cuts, movies that never made it to digital platforms. The weird part is that most of these massive DVD hauls never get claimed. Drivers face a real dilemma with these discoveries. Do you store 100 discs in your trunk for weeks hoping someone calls? Some drivers end up keeping them, figuring if someone cared that much about their movie collection, they wouldn't have forgotten it in the first place. Others donate them to libraries or senior centers. The funniest part? These DVD discoveries happen more often than you'd think. Apparently there's an entire underground community of people still buying, selling, and yes, losing physical media. Makes sense, right? 22. Adhesive bras have become the go-to solution for backless dresses, strapless tops, and those tricky outfits that make regular bras impossible. But here's what nobody talks about, they're also one of the most awkward items left behind in rideshare cars. These sticky contraptions get forgotten more often than you'd think, especially after weddings, formal events, and nights out when comfort becomes the priority. The mechanics of losing a sticky bra are pretty straightforward. Women often remove them in the car after long events because, let's face it, they're not exactly built for all-day comfort. The adhesive starts losing its grip after hours of wear, and by the time you're heading home, that thing is basically torturing you. So off it comes, usually getting stuffed into a purse or tossed onto the seat. Then there's the retrieval problem. Unlike a phone or wallet, asking for your adhesive bra back requires a certain level of comfort, with awkwardness that not everyone possesses. Many women just cut their losses and buy a new one rather than explain to a driver what that flesh-colored silicone thing is. Drivers, meanwhile, often have no clue what they've found stuck to their seat fabric. The seasonal patterns are interesting too. Wedding season brings a spike in forgotten adhesive bras, along with prom season and holiday party months. Cities with active nightlife scenes report these items more frequently. Some brands cost upwards of $50, making them expensive enough to miss but embarrassing enough to abandon. The whole situation perfectly captures that intersection of practicality and social discomfort that makes urban life so wonderfully weird. 23. Fresh meat pies forgotten in rideshare cars create one of the most awkward lost and found scenarios drivers encounter. These aren't your average fast food leftovers. We're talking about full trays of homemade or bakery fresh pies that passengers somehow manage to leave behind after group events, family gatherings, or late-night food runs. The geographic pattern is fascinating. Certain regions report significantly higher meat pie losses, particularly in areas where these savory treats are cultural staples. Australian cities top the charts, followed by British neighbourhoods in major metropolitan areas where traditional meat pies remain popular comfort food. Most of these abandoned trays contain multiple pies, suggesting they were purchased for sharing or special occasions. Some arrive fresh from the oven, still warm and fragrant, while others represent half-eaten party leftovers that passengers somehow forgot in their post-celebration haze. The timing follows predictable patterns. Weekends see the highest pie abandonment rates, especially after evening social gatherings. Then there's the driver dilemma. Unlike phones or wallets, meat pies have an expiration clock ticking loudly. Drivers face the uncomfortable choice of discarding potentially expensive food or attempting to contact passengers about perishable items that might not survive the return process. The recovery rate for forgotten meat pies sits embarrassingly low. Most passengers never request their return, perhaps because they realize the food safety window has closed, or they're simply too embarrassed to claim forgotten party food. Some drivers report keeping pies for themselves, though company policies generally discourage consuming passenger belongings. The whole situation creates a uniquely awkward dance between hunger, policy and practicality that makes meat pie losses memorable for everyone involved. 24. Surgical implant boxes might sound like something only surgeons would handle, but they end up in Uber cars more often than you'd think. These medical containers usually get forgotten after hospital visits or pre-surgery appointments. What makes this particularly stressful? The box often contains crucial information about the patient's upcoming procedure. Most people don't realize how expensive these implants can be. We're talking thousands of dollars worth of medical equipment sitting in the back of someone's ride. The titanium hip joints, cardiac stents or orthopedic screws inside aren't just costly, they're literally life-changing for the patient waiting for surgery. But here's where it gets complicated. Hospital staff sometimes step in to help retrieve these items because they understand the urgency. A lost implant box can mean rescheduling surgery, which creates a domino effect of problems. The operating room gets booked by someone else. The surgical team has to reschedule. The patient's recovery timeline gets pushed back weeks or even months. Then there's the awkward part for drivers. They're holding medical equipment they can't identify, with serial numbers and patient information they shouldn't see. Some drivers panic and think they need to rush to the nearest hospital immediately. Others just treat it like any other lost item and wait for the passenger to call. The good news? These boxes almost always get claimed within hours. Patients realize pretty quickly when they're missing something this important. Hospitals have systems in place to track their expensive implants, and they'll work directly with rideshare companies to get them back fast. 25. Celebrity-branded fans might sound ridiculous until you realize some people pay hundreds of dollars for them. The Beyoncé fold-up fan represents a whole category of concert merchandise that gets left behind after the excitement dies down. These aren't your grandmother's church fans either. We're talking about limited edition items with holographic designs, autographed handles, and serial numbers that make them collectible. Most drivers have no clue what they're dealing with when they find one of these things wedged between seat cushions. To them, it's just a piece of plastic that unfolds. But for the teenager who saved up 3 months of allowance to buy it at the concert, it's basically a sacred relic. The resale value on some of these fans can reach astronomical levels, especially if they were sold exclusively at specific tour stops or carry authentic signatures. What makes this whole situation even more fascinating is the timing. These fans typically get lost during the post-concert rush when adrenaline is still pumping and fans are replaying every moment in their heads. They're clutching their phones, trying to post Instagram stories, and completely forgetting about the merchandise they just spent a fortune on. Well, until they get home and realize their prized possession is somewhere in the back seat of a stranger's car. The recovery rate for these items is surprisingly low because many fans don't immediately notice the loss. By the time they figure it out, the driver has already moved on to dozens of other rides, and that expensive piece of pop culture history becomes just another forgotten item in the lost and found pile. 26. Artists know the struggle of transporting their work. Canvas rolls, paint tubes, easels, the whole studio sometimes needs to move. But nothing beats the awkwardness of forgetting a large self-portrait in someone's back seat. Well, actually it happens more than you'd think. These aren't small sketches we're talking about. We're dealing with full-sized paintings that riders commission or create for art classes, gallery submissions or personal projects. The canvas size makes them impossible to miss, right? Wrong. During house moves, gallery openings or art class pickups, the excitement and stress cause even the most organized artists to walk away empty-handed. Then there's the delivery mix-up factor. Drivers sometimes assume the artwork is a package they're supposed to drop off somewhere else. The professional-looking wrapping doesn't help. Many self-portraits come wrapped in brown paper or protective plastic, making them look like legitimate deliveries. Some drivers have spent entire shifts wondering where they're supposed to take the mysterious rectangular package. Art students are the biggest culprits here. Racing between classes, critique sessions and part-time jobs creates the perfect storm for forgetfulness. The weird part is how quickly artists realize their mistake. Unlike a forgotten phone or wallet, losing hours of creative work triggers an immediate panic response. Most contact Uber support within minutes of exiting the vehicle. But here's where it gets interesting. Not all self-portraits make it back to their creators. Some drivers, thinking the artwork is abandoned trash, dispose of original pieces worth hundreds of dollars. Others keep them, genuinely curious about the person staring back from the canvas. 27. Movie props have this weird way of becoming real-life mysteries when left in rideshares. The Ghostbusters ghost trap stands out as one of the most recognizable yet bizarre items drivers discover sliding around their back seats. These aren't just random toys. They're detailed replicas that light up, make sounds, and sometimes even smoke when activated. Most of these traps get forgotten after fan conventions, Halloween parties, or movie-themed events where grown adults dress up like their childhood heroes. The funny thing, these contraptions are so realistic that some drivers genuinely panic when they first spot one. Well, imagine hearing strange electronic beeping from your trunk at 2 a.m. and finding what looks like legitimate paranormal equipment. Then there's the battery issue. Many ghost traps come with sound effects and flashing LED lights that activate randomly. Drivers report hearing weird sci-fi noises during their next ride, only to realize the passenger making noise is actually tucked under a seat. Some traps even have motion sensors, so they start buzzing and lighting up every time the car hits a bump. The good news? Unlike most forgotten items, ghost traps get claimed pretty quickly. Ghostbusters fans take their props seriously, and these things aren't exactly cheap to replace. Plus, they're hard to miss during a car inspection. But here's the weird part. Some drivers admit they've been tempted to keep them. After all, who wouldn't want their own piece of ghost hunting equipment? Even if it's just for show, it beats having jumper cables as your most interesting trunk accessory. 28. Beach chairs and camping seats have a sneaky way of disappearing from Uber rides. These lightweight, portable pieces of furniture get tossed into trunks after long days at the park or beach, then completely slip riders' minds when they finally reach home. The bulky nature makes them impossible to miss, yet somehow passengers manage to forget them anyway. Most foldable chairs end up abandoned during summer months when outdoor activities peak. Families pack up after picnics, concerts, or sporting events, rushing to catch their ride while juggling kids, coolers, and bags. The chairs get loaded last and forgotten first. Drivers often don't notice these items until their next passenger points them out, or they're cleaning their vehicle hours later. Then there's the awkward situation where drivers assume the chairs belong to them. Some Uber drivers do carry their own emergency seating for breaks between rides. This confusion means legitimate lost chairs might sit unclaimed for days while drivers debate whether to report them. The trunk becomes a temporary storage unit for forgotten outdoor gear. What makes this even stranger is how essential these chairs are for comfort during outdoor events. People spend good money on quality folding furniture, especially the ones with cup holders and cushioned seats. Yet when fatigue hits after a long day in the sun, even expensive camping chairs become invisible to tired minds. The return rate for these items stays surprisingly low. Most riders either don't realize their loss until the next outdoor adventure, or simply replace them rather than deal with the hassle of coordinating pickup with their driver. 29. Seafood and rideshares don't mix well, but somehow live lobsters still end up forgotten in Uber cars across the country. These crustaceans aren't your typical lost item. They're usually bought fresh from markets or brought home from restaurants where diners couldn't finish their meal. The problem? Lobsters don't stay quiet. Drivers discover these unexpected passengers pretty quickly. A scratching sound from a bag or the distinct smell of ocean water gives them away fast. Live lobsters are more dramatic than cooked ones, obviously. They move around, make noise, and create a genuine emergency situation for drivers who suddenly realize they're transporting something that needs to stay alive. Coastal cities report more lobster incidents than landlocked areas, which makes perfect sense. Boston, Seattle, and Miami see the most cases, especially near waterfront restaurants and seafood markets. Business travelers heading to client dinners sometimes forget their expensive purchases in the rush to catch flights. The real challenge comes with what to do next. Most drivers aren't equipped to handle live seafood. Some panic and call Uber support immediately. Others drive straight to the nearest grocery store or restaurant, hoping someone there can help. A few drivers have actually ended up adopting the lobsters themselves, though that's not exactly company policy. The smell factor makes cooked lobster equally problematic. Even when properly packaged, the odor lingers in vehicles for hours. Drivers often discover forgotten lobster dinners during their next pickup, leading to awkward conversations with new passengers about why their ride smells like a seafood restaurant. 30. Small envelopes containing passport photos get left behind in Ubers more often than you'd think. These tiny pictures might seem insignificant, but they're actually crucial for urgent paperwork and travel documentation. Most people don't realize they've lost them until they're standing at a government office or embassy, frantically searching through their bags. The timing of these losses couldn't be worse. Passport photos are typically needed for visa applications, passport renewals, or official documents that can't wait. When someone discovers their photos are missing, it often means rescheduling important appointments or paying rush fees for new pictures. That $15 photo session suddenly becomes a $50 emergency expense. What makes these losses particularly frustrating is how easily the small envelopes slip between seat cushions or fall onto car floors. The photos are usually taken the same day as the appointment, so riders are rushing from the photo shop to their destination. In that hurried transition from car to building, the envelope gets forgotten. Security becomes another concern when personal identification photos are floating around in lost and found systems. These images contain biometric information that could potentially be misused if they fall into the wrong hands. Most riders request immediate return once they realize what happened. The good news: most passport photos are reclaimed within 24 hours because people need them urgently. Drivers often find these small envelopes wedged in unusual places days later, long after the original appointment has passed. Some photo studios have started putting bright-colored envelopes specifically to prevent this common oversight. 31. Red high heels get left behind in Ubers more than you'd think. These aren't your everyday sneakers or comfortable flats. We're talking about those statement shoes that cost half a paycheck and make every step feel like a runway walk. The irony: they're usually forgotten after the most memorable nights out. Most of these abandoned heels belong to younger women heading home from parties, clubs, or fancy dinners. Makes sense, right? After hours of dancing or walking on unforgiving sidewalks, those gorgeous torture devices come off the second you slide into that back seat. Your feet finally get relief, and your brain completely forgets about the expensive footwear left behind. Here's the weird part: red heels specifically dominate the lost and found reports. Not black, not nude, but fire engine red. Maybe it's because red shoes are saved for special occasions, those nights when everything feels a bit more intense and memorable. Or perhaps red just catches the driver's eye more when they're cleaning out their car the next morning. The return rate for forgotten heels sits painfully low. Unlike phones or wallets, shoes don't feel urgent enough to chase down through Uber's lost item system. Most drivers end up with random collections of single heels cluttering their trunks, wondering what stories these shoes could tell. Then there's the practical problem: one shoe is completely useless. Even if you track down that perfect red heel, chances are its partner got left in a different ride entirely. Some drivers joke that they're running an accidental shoe museum, with red heels leading the collection. 32. Laptop chargers have become the modern equivalent of losing your car keys. These essential cables disappear into the black hole of rideshare vehicles with alarming frequency, usually during those late-night rides when your brain is already halfway to your pillow. Business travelers are the biggest victims here, clutching their laptops while completely forgetting the lifeline that keeps them running. The timing couldn't be worse. Most chargers vanish right when you need them most, nights before important presentations, during work trips, or when you're already running low on battery. It's like your laptop charger has a sixth sense for the worst possible moment to abandon ship. The replacement cost adds insult to injury, especially for those proprietary cables that somehow cost more than a decent meal. Shared rides see the highest charger casualty rates. When you're squished between strangers, fumbling with bags and trying to exit gracefully, that charging cable becomes an afterthought. Makes sense, right? Your focus is on not forgetting your actual laptop, not the humble cord that makes it useful. But here's where it gets interesting. Some Uber drivers have started collecting these forgotten chargers like trophies. They've got entire drawers full of various cables, from basic phone chargers to high-end laptop adapters. A few entrepreneurial drivers even sell them online or keep them as backup inventory for future passengers. The irony, that charger you lost last month might be powering someone else's urgent work deadline today, creating an endless cycle of technological karma. 33. Hair loss affects millions of people worldwide, but losing your toupee in an Uber, that's a whole different kind of embarrassing. Frontal hair toupees rank among the most awkward items left behind in rideshare vehicles, creating uncomfortable situations for both drivers and passengers. These cosmetic hair pieces are typically forgotten after salon visits, when people are adjusting to their new look or simply distracted by other concerns. The awkwardness factor here is off the charts. Most riders who lose their toupee feel too mortified to contact the driver directly. Instead, they rely on Uber's lost item system, hoping to retrieve their hairpiece without having to explain what it actually is. Drivers often have no clue what they've found, sometimes mistaking the hair for pet fur or even a small animal that somehow got into their car. Then there's the age factor. Older riders are statistically more likely to forget toupees, especially during evening rides when lighting is dim and they're tired from long days. The hairpieces are surprisingly easy to lose because they're lightweight and can slip off during bumpy rides or when passengers lean back against the seat. Recovery rates for toupees are surprisingly low. Many people would rather buy a replacement than face the embarrassment of explaining their lost hairpiece to a stranger. Drivers sometimes hold on to these items for weeks, unsure whether they're dealing with a wig, a pet toy, or something else entirely. The whole situation proves that sometimes the most personal items create the most impersonal recovery experiences. 34. Baseball cards getting left behind in Ubers might sound like small potatoes, but collectors know the real deal. We're talking mint condition cards here, the kind that make grown adults weak in the knees. Some of these forgotten sets are worth hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars, and yet people just walk away from them like they're old grocery receipts. The pattern is pretty predictable. Comic conventions, card shows, hobby shops, riders get so pumped up about their new acquisitions that they forget the basics. They're clutching their prized Mickey Mantle rookie card, chatting excitedly about condition grades and market values, then boom, they hop out and leave everything behind. The irony, these are the same people who sleeve their cards in protective plastic and handle them with tweezers at home. Well, here's where it gets interesting. Most of these cards get picked up lightning fast if the owner realizes what happened. Baseball fans don't mess around when money's on the line. They'll call Uber support, track down the driver, even offer rewards that exceed the ride fare. Some drivers have become accidental experts in sports memorabilia just from handling these lost treasures. But the really wild part is what happens to unclaimed cards. Some drivers hold onto them for months, hoping the owner will surface. Others donate them to local card shops or give them to kids in their neighborhood. A few have discovered they're sitting on gold mines. Imagine finding out that forgotten shoebox contains a gem worth more than your car payment. 35. VIP concert lanyards represent one of those peculiar lost items that tells a story about human nature and our relationship with exclusive experiences. These aren't your average ID badges hanging around someone's neck. We're talking about holographic passes, custom designs, and access credentials that cost hundreds or sometimes thousands of dollars to obtain. The psychology behind losing these items is fascinating. You've just experienced the concert of a lifetime, adrenaline is pumping through your veins, and you're practically floating on cloud 9 as you slide into that Uber. Your mind is replaying every guitar solo, every crowd interaction, every moment that made you feel special, and then, you unconsciously slip off that lanyard and forget it exists. Most of these lanyards end up on seatbacks, where they dangle like forgotten trophies. Drivers often find them hours later, sometimes even the next day. The cruel irony, once you've used a VIP lanyard, it's essentially worthless. You can't transfer it to another show, can't sell it, can't even use it as a regular ID holder without looking like you're trying too hard to impress people. But here's the weird part, Misha riders almost never come back for them. Maybe it's embarrassment. Maybe they realize the lanyard served its purpose, or maybe they're too busy posting Instagram stories about their incredible night to remember they left behind the very thing that made it possible. These lanyards become like concert confetti, meaningful in the moment, forgotten by morning. 36. Wedding veils might seem like the last thing someone would forget after their big day. After all, they're usually custom-made, expensive, and carry massive emotional weight. But here's the thing. Brides absolutely lose these delicate pieces of matrimonial history in Uber rides all the time. Most of these losses happen after receptions when exhaustion kicks in hard. The bride has been wearing this thing for 12 hours straight, her feet are killing her, and she's probably had a few glasses of champagne. She climbs into that Uber with her new husband, carefully removes the veil to avoid snagging it on the door, and, whoops, left it right there on the seat. The weird part, most lost wedding veils never make it back to their owners. Makes sense when you think about it. By the time the bride realizes it's missing, she's already home, probably collapsed in bed still wearing her dress. The last thing on her mind is checking the back seat of some random car. Then there's the awkward factor. Calling to retrieve a wedding veil means admitting you forgot one of the most important accessories from your wedding day. Some brides are too embarrassed to even try. But when reunions do happen, they create the best stories. Drivers talk about brides showing up in sweatpants and messy hair, clutching their recovered veil like it's made of pure gold. Because honestly, for many of them, it might as well be those happy endings make all the forgotten fashion worth remembering. 37. Tech enthusiasts and their gadgets make for interesting Uber stories, but drone controllers might just take the cake for the most expensive oops moment. These remote controls don't look like much to the untrained eye. Basically fancy TV remotes with extra buttons and tiny joysticks. That's exactly why they get left behind so often. The real kicker, most drone controllers cost between $200 and $800, depending on the model. We're not talking about cheap toy remotes here. These things control professional-grade equipment that photographers and videographers use for stunning aerial shots. When someone realizes they've left their controller in an Uber, panic sets in fast. Here's where it gets interesting though. Drone controllers are most commonly forgotten after scenic rides. You know, those trips to beaches, parks, or mountain overlooks where people go to capture breathtaking footage. The excitement of getting the perfect shot apparently scrambles the brain just enough to forget the one thing you need to control your expensive flying camera. Drivers often have no clue what they're looking at when they find these controllers. Some think it's a gaming device or maybe some weird phone accessory. The lucky ones who know what it is usually try to return them through Uber's system, but the success rate isn't great, and the weird part is, many of these controllers are found near popular photo spots during golden hour, that magical time when the lighting is perfect for photography. Seems like beautiful sunsets and expensive tech don't mix well in the back of rideshares. 38. Love letters might seem old-fashioned in our digital age, but they're still getting lost in Ubers across the globe. These handwritten notes carry something emails and texts never will. The actual touch of someone's hand, the pressure of their pen, maybe even a tear stain or two. When someone forgets a love letter in the back seat, it's not just paper they're leaving behind. The privacy factor makes these discoveries incredibly awkward for drivers. What do you do when you find someone's most intimate thoughts scrawled across 3 pages of notebook paper? Most drivers admit they're tempted to read at least the first line, but the smart ones know better. These aren't just random documents, they're someone's heart laid bare in blue ink. Then there's the question of returning them. Unlike a phone or wallet, love letters don't have clear identification. Sure, there might be names, but which Sarah in the city does this belong to? Some letters include addresses or phone numbers, making reunion possible. Others remain mysteries forever, tucked away in lost and found boxes like romantic novels without endings. The timing of these losses tells its own story. Most handwritten love letters get forgotten after date nights, particularly those that didn't go as planned. Nervous energy, rushed exits, and emotional conversations create the perfect storm for leaving behind something precious. Well, what makes it worse is that many of these letters never make it back to their intended recipient. The sender loses their courage, the receiver never knows what they missed, and somewhere a driver has accidentally become the keeper of someone else's love story. 39. Comic book collectors know the pain of losing something irreplaceable. These aren't your average superhero stories from the gas station rack. We're talking mint condition issues that could fund a decent vacation, or at least a really nice dinner. The frustration hits hard when you realize that 1970s Spider-Man comic you just bought at the convention is sitting in someone's backseat instead of your protective sleeve collection. Convention goers make up the biggest chunk of vintage comic losses in rideshares. The excitement of finding that perfect issue clouds judgment during rushed exits. One moment you're clutching your holy grail discovery, the next you're home wondering where decades of comic book hunting went wrong. Dealers report that customers frequently call back asking if they left purchases behind, only to realize the comics never made it past the Uber ride. Well, the real kicker comes with value assessment. That seemingly random comic book could be worth $5 or $5,000. Drivers have no clue they're sitting on potential treasure. Most comics end up in lost property bins alongside forgotten sunglasses and phone chargers. The window for recovery shrinks fast when owners don't realize their mistake immediately. But here's what really stings: unlike phones or wallets, comics don't have obvious identification markers. No name tags or contact information tucked inside those plastic protective covers. Return rates stay remarkably low, unless the owner can provide incredibly specific details about issue numbers, publication dates, and condition notes. Comic book shops sometimes help facilitate returns, but most vintage finds become expensive lessons in better travel habits. 40. Pet owners rushing around the city often forget more than just their phones or wallets. Dog sweaters rank among the most endearing items left behind in rideshare vehicles worldwide. These tiny garments, designed to keep furry friends warm during chilly walks, somehow end up abandoned on car seats and floor mats with surprising frequency. The phenomenon peaks during winter months when temperatures drop and pet parents bundle up their four-legged companions for outdoor adventures. Boston, Chicago, and Minneapolis report the highest numbers of forgotten dog clothing, which makes perfect sense given their brutal winters. But here's what's interesting. Even warm cities like Los Angeles and Miami see dog sweater losses year-round, thanks to overly air-conditioned buildings and early morning walks. Most drivers initially mistake these items for children's clothing or unusual accessories. The confusion is understandable since many dog sweaters now feature designer patterns, team logos, and even tiny hoodies that look remarkably human-like. Some cost upwards of $50, especially those made from organic wool or featuring custom embroidery. Recovery rates vary dramatically based on the sweater's uniqueness. Plain colors rarely get claimed, while personalized items with the dog's name stitched on get retrieved within hours. Well, pet parents know their Fluffy's wardrobe better than anyone else's. The Uber app's lost and found system processes hundreds of dog sweater reports monthly, with photos of confused drivers holding up tiny argyle vests or miniature rain jackets. Winter truly brings out both the best and most forgetful sides of devoted dog owners everywhere. 41. Baby car seats rank among the most panic-inducing items left in rideshare vehicles. Parents discover the missing seat when they're already at daycare pickup or heading to another appointment with their child. The realization hits like a cold splash of water. No car seat means no safe way to transport their little one home. Most baby car seats forgotten in Ubers happen during those chaotic errand runs. You know the drill: grocery store, pharmacy, quick coffee stop, then suddenly you're standing outside daycare empty-handed. The expensive models, often costing $200 to $400, get reported to Uber's lost and found system faster than cheaper alternatives. Parents don't mess around when safety gear goes missing. Then there's the awkward conversation with daycare staff. "Sorry, I can't take Emma home because I left her car seat in the Uber." Staff members have heard it all, but that doesn't make the situation less embarrassing. Some parents end up calling relatives for backup car seats or making emergency purchases at nearby stores. Uber drivers receive special instructions about baby car seats in their lost item protocols. These aren't typical forgotten phones or wallets. Child safety equipment requires immediate attention. Drivers often store car seats in their homes rather than car trunks to prevent damage or theft. The bulky bases and detachable carriers make them impossible to miss during vehicle cleaning. What's particularly frustrating for parents is that modern car seats have expiration dates and specific installation requirements. You can't just borrow any random seat from a friend. The lost seat might be perfectly adjusted for your vehicle and your child's current weight range. 42. Halloween brings out the strangest things in people: costumes, candy, and apparently the overwhelming urge to forget masks in Uber cars. October becomes a nightmare for drivers who suddenly find themselves collecting horror movie props, superhero faces, and everything in between. The variety is absolutely wild. One day it's a realistic zombie mask that makes the next passenger jump out of their skin. The next it's a glittery unicorn head that somehow got wedged between the seat cushions. Drivers report finding everything from classic Michael Myers masks to elaborate handmade creations that probably took weeks to make. Then there's the timing issue. Most masks get left behind during those rushed late-night rides home from parties. People are exhausted, maybe a little tipsy, and just want to get home. The mask that seemed so important at 8 p.m. becomes completely forgotten by 2 a.m. when they're sliding out of the back seat. But here's the weird part: almost nobody comes back for them. Unlike phones or wallets, masks seem to have zero retrieval value once the party's over. Maybe it's embarrassment, maybe people just don't want to deal with the hassle of tracking down their rubber Batman face the next morning. Some drivers have started collecting them as trophies. One veteran Uber driver in Chicago claims he has over 30 masks from various Halloweens, ranging from cheap dollar store finds to expensive movie-quality pieces. His garage looks like a costume shop exploded. Makes you wonder what happens to all those forgotten faces once November rolls around. 43. Fresh flowers might seem like the perfect romantic gesture, but they're surprisingly common casualties in the back seats of rideshare vehicles. Weekend rides see the highest spike in forgotten bouquets, especially after dinner dates or special celebrations. Valentine's Day and Mother's Day create absolute chaos in the floral lost and found department. The timing makes everything worse. Most flower deliveries happen during emotionally charged moments, anniversary dinners, apology missions, or surprise visits to loved ones. Riders get caught up in the excitement or anxiety of their destination and simply walk away from their carefully chosen arrangements. Then there's the wilting factor. Unlike a forgotten phone that stays functional for days, flowers have an expiration clock that starts ticking immediately. Drivers face an awkward dilemma when they discover roses or lilies hours after drop-off. Do they attempt to preserve them? Toss them? Some drivers have started keeping small vases just for this situation. The sentimental loss hits hardest though. These aren't just plants, they represent planned gestures, special occasions, and sometimes desperate attempts to fix relationships. One driver reported finding wedding anniversary flowers 3 days after the ride, completely wilted. The passenger never claimed them. Well, here's the twist. Some drivers have turned forgotten flowers into random acts of kindness. They'll donate fresh bouquets to nursing homes or hospitals, rather than watch them die in lost property storage. It's become an unofficial network of accidental flower fairy godmothers, spreading joy from one person's forgetfulness to another's surprise delight. 44. Your phone dies at 15%. Panic sets in. You frantically search your pockets, your bag, under the seat cushions. Nothing. That sinking feeling hits when you realize your lifeline to the world is sitting in someone's Toyota Camry, probably heading to the airport, or maybe just parked outside a 7-Eleven somewhere across town. Power banks have become the unsung heroes of our digital addiction, yet they're also becoming one of the most commonly forgotten items in rideshares. These portable battery packs are supposed to keep us connected, but ironically, we keep losing them when we need them most. The average power bank costs anywhere from $20 to $60, which isn't exactly pocket change for most people. What makes this even more frustrating is timing. Most riders lose their power banks during long trips when they've been charging their phones for an hour or more. You get comfortable, plug in your device, and completely forget about the little black rectangle that's been keeping you alive. Then there's the rush factor. You're running late for a meeting or trying to catch a flight, so you grab your phone and bolt, leaving your power bank behind like a forgotten soldier. The really weird part: most power banks never get claimed. Unlike phones or wallets, people seem to just accept the loss and buy a new one. Maybe it's because they're relatively cheap to replace, or maybe we've just gotten used to losing them. Tech stores probably love this trend. Power bank sales keep climbing as our forgetfulness reaches new heights every year. 45. Rain starts falling and suddenly everyone needs an umbrella. But here's the thing. Umbrellas are hands down one of the most forgotten items in rideshare cars worldwide. Drivers end up with collections that would make a street vendor jealous. The numbers tell a wild story too. During rainy season, umbrella reports spike by over 300% in cities like Seattle and London. The psychology behind it makes perfect sense when you break it down. People grab umbrellas when they're rushing out in bad weather. They're focused on not getting soaked, checking their phones, or just relieved to be inside a warm car. The umbrella becomes invisible the moment they're safe and dry. Then there's the value factor that changes everything. Cheap drugstore umbrellas, forgotten forever, but that fancy $80 compact umbrella from Japan, you bet someone's calling within hours. What's really interesting is how drivers handle the umbrella overflow. Some keep a few extras for passengers caught in unexpected downpours. Others donate them to homeless shelters after a month of no claims. The really smart drivers, they've figured out which neighborhoods lose the most expensive umbrellas and time their shifts accordingly. But here's where it gets weird. Some riders lose umbrellas on perfectly sunny days. These are usually the people who checked the weather wrong or grabbed their roommate's umbrella by mistake. The seasonal pattern is absolutely predictable though. Spring brings the biggest umbrella amnesia wave, followed by those surprise summer storms that catch everyone off guard. Most of these umbrellas never make it back to their owners. 46. Bicycle helmets might seem like an obvious thing to remember, but they're surprisingly easy to forget in the back of an Uber. The whole situation usually starts when someone's transporting their bike on a car rack or just finished a group ride with friends. You're tired, maybe a little sweaty, and your main focus is getting home. That helmet? It's sitting right there on the seat next to you, but somehow it becomes invisible. The forgetfulness gets worse after group rides. There's something about the social energy and post-workout exhaustion that makes people completely zone out. They'll grab their water bottle, check their phone, maybe chat with the driver about the weather, but that helmet just stays put, waiting to become someone else's problem. Here's where it gets interesting though. Most losing your helmet creates a real safety issue for your next bike ride. Most cyclists don't realize they've forgotten it until they're already gearing up for another adventure. Then there's that moment of panic when you're searching through your gear and coming up empty-handed. Many helmets have unique stickers or decorations that make them easier to identify. Kids especially love covering their helmets with superhero decals or sparkly designs. Adult cyclists often have reflective tape or club logos that help distinguish their gear from the generic ones. The whole thing becomes a race against time because serious cyclists won't ride without proper head protection. Well, the smart ones won't anyway. Drivers end up storing these helmets for weeks, hoping someone will eventually claim their forgotten safety gear. 47. Yoga enthusiasts have a love-hate relationship with their mats. They roll them up after a peaceful morning session, feeling zen and accomplished. Then they hop into an Uber, still glowing from their workout high. But somewhere between Namaste and their next destination, that carefully rolled tube of rubber gets forgotten faster than yesterday's meditation mantra. Major metro areas see the highest rates of abandoned yoga mats. New York, Los Angeles and San Francisco lead the pack, which makes perfect sense when you consider how many people are squeezing in dawn workouts before rushing to their jobs. These cities are packed with health-conscious commuters who treat their 6 a.m. yoga class like a religious ceremony. The timing tells an interesting story too. Most yoga mats get left behind during early morning rides, typically between 7 and 9 a.m. That's prime time for post-workout transportation, when people are still floating on endorphins and thinking about their day ahead rather than checking their belongings. The peaceful state of mind that yoga creates might actually work against remembering practical things. Then there's the replacement factor. Some mats are basic $5 varieties from discount stores, easily replaceable and rarely claimed. But others? We're talking premium brands that cost upwards of $80, with personal touches like custom straps or motivational quotes written in permanent marker. Those branded beauties usually get desperate retrieval calls within hours. The weird part is how many riders don't realize their loss until they're standing outside their next yoga studio, empty-handed and embarrassed. 48. Work badges might seem like simple plastic cards, but they're the golden tickets to office buildings, hospitals and tech campuses across the country. These little rectangles pack more power than most people realize. One swipe gets you past security, into elevators, and through doors that cost companies thousands to protect. Lose yours? Good luck explaining to your boss why you're stuck in the lobby at 8 a.m. Professional riders forget their ID badges more than any other work-related item in rideshares. The pattern is predictable: long shifts, exhaustion, and that automatic clip-unclip motion when settling into a car seat. Hospital workers top the list, followed closely by tech employees and teachers. All makes sense, right? These jobs demand badge access dozens of times per day, creating muscle memory that works against you when you're mentally checked out. Then there's the security nightmare aspect. Most companies treat lost badges like mini emergencies. IT departments get involved, temporary passes get issued. Some workplaces even charge replacement fees that can hit $50 or more. The weird part is how many badges never make it back to their owners, even when drivers find them immediately. Morning commutes see the highest badge loss rates, especially Monday through Wednesday. Weekend shifts change the pattern entirely. Healthcare workers dominate Saturday and Sunday losses. But here's what really surprises drivers: the sheer variety of badge designs. Some look like credit cards. Others resemble tiny computers with chips and sensors. A few even have photos so outdated, they're practically archaeological artifacts. Your Tuesday morning ride might reveal someone's decade-old headshot grinning back from the floor mat. 49. Pool floaties rank among the most colorful items left behind in rideshare vehicles. These inflatable companions show up in every shape imaginable. unicorns, flamingos, donuts and pizza slices. Summer months see the biggest spike in forgotten pool toys, with drivers discovering deflated swans wedged under seats and rainbow rafts stuffed in door pockets. What makes pool floaties particularly interesting is how they transform during transport. A rider might squeeze a massive inflatable into an Uber, only to forget it completely once they reach their destination. The bright neon colors should make them impossible to miss, yet somehow they blend into the chaos of a fun-filled day. Most floaties never make it back to their owners. Unlike phones or wallets, these items don't trigger immediate panic when lost. People realize they're missing their unicorn float only when they're standing poolside the next weekend, wondering where their Instagram-worthy prop went. The seasonal nature of these losses creates interesting patterns. Beach cities report flamingo sightings year-round, while northern areas see floaty forests only during brief summer months. Some drivers end up with collections that would make pool party planners jealous. Then there's the practical problem of storage. A partially inflated dolphin doesn't fit neatly in lost and found boxes. Drivers often deflate items completely, turning majestic pool creatures into sad piles of plastic. By the time someone realizes their mistake, their beloved pool companion has transformed from party essential to forgotten trash. The life cycle of a lost floaty tells the story of summer fun that simply floated away. 50. Grocery bags might seem like the most boring item to forget in an Uber, but here's the thing, they're actually one of the most stressful losses for riders. Nothing ruins your day quite like realizing your week's worth of food is sitting in some stranger's back seat, slowly spoiling in the summer heat. The pattern is pretty predictable. Most grocery bag losses happen during those frantic errand runs when people are juggling multiple stops. You know the drill: hit the store, grab everything on your list, call an Uber because your arms are full, then rush out because you're already late for your next appointment. The bags get shoved into the back seat, and boom, they become someone else's problem the moment you slam that door shut. Perishables make this whole situation even messier. Drivers aren't exactly thrilled about storing milk, frozen foods or fresh produce in their cars for hours. Can you blame them? That gallon of milk isn't going to stay fresh while waiting for you to realize your mistake and file a lost item report. Then there's the timing issue. Most people discover they're missing groceries when they get home and reach for something they just bought. By then, it's been at least an hour, sometimes more. The weekly spike in lost grocery bags happens predictably, Sunday afternoons and weekday evenings when everyone's trying to stock up for the week ahead. Some riders get lucky and retrieve their bags the same day. Others end up making that grocery run all over again, which honestly might be faster than dealing with the whole lost item process anyway. 51. Graduation caps have this magical ability to disappear right when you need them most. You'd think something so important would stay glued to your head, but nope. These academic symbols slip away during the most exciting rides of a graduate's life. The moment between ceremony and celebration. That's prime time for cap casualties. Most graduation caps vanish during group rides filled with excited families and friends. Everyone's talking, laughing, taking photos, and somehow the cap just slides off into the seat crack. The square hat design doesn't help either. It's basically engineered to fall off at the worst possible moment. Then there's the tassel situation. Those little strings get caught on everything from car doors to other passengers' jewelry. But here's the thing about lost graduation caps. They're not just pieces of fabric and cardboard. Each one represents years of hard work, late nights and academic stress. Some families keep graduation caps as heirlooms, passing them down through generations. Others need them for multiple ceremonies or photo shoots that stretch over several days. The emotional attachment runs deep too. Students often decorate their caps with personal messages, family photos or inside jokes. Losing that custom artwork feels like losing a piece of their identity. Uber drivers report finding caps weeks later, still decorated with glitter and motivational quotes. Some drivers even keep a few as reminders of all the dreams that passed through their back seat. Makes you wonder how many futures got temporarily lost in the cushions. 52. Sushi platters getting left behind in Ubers. Might sound like a weird problem, but it happens more than you'd think. Fresh rolls, expensive sashimi and elaborate party trays end up abandoned in back seats across major cities every single day. The irony: most of these forgotten meals cost between $50 and $200. Group outings create the perfect storm for sushi disasters. Friends pile into an Uber after picking up massive orders from upscale Japanese restaurants. Everyone's talking, laughing, maybe a little tipsy from sake. The car stops, people scramble out, and boom, there sits a beautiful platter of rainbow rolls getting warm in someone's back seat. Drivers face a tough choice with abandoned sushi. Unlike phones or wallets, raw fish has an expiration clock that's ticking fast. Most drivers discover the forgotten food within hours, but by then it's already sketchy. Food safety rules mean they can't exactly store it overnight and hope someone calls back tomorrow. The waste factor stings. These aren't cheap McDonald's bags we're talking about. Premium sushi represents serious money and skilled preparation. Chefs spend years perfecting those knife cuts, and rice preparation is practically an art form. Watching expensive omakase selections head straight to the dumpster feels wrong on multiple levels. Then there's the smell situation. Raw fish left in a closed car creates memorable consequences for the driver's next passengers. Some drivers report needing professional cleaning after particularly fragrant forgotten sushi incidents. The seaweed wrapping doesn't help either. It gets everywhere and sticks to upholstery like green confetti that nobody ordered. 53. Stuffed animals might seem like simple toys, but they're emotional powerhouses that create panic when lost in Ubers. Kids form deep attachments to these plush companions, treating them like family members rather than mere playthings. When a beloved teddy bear or bunny gets left behind after a family trip, the discovery often triggers tears and sleepless nights. Parents quickly realize the gravity of the situation. That worn-out elephant isn't just fabric and stuffing, it's a security blanket, bedtime ritual and comfort source all rolled into one. The frantic calls to Uber support multiply when nap time becomes impossible without Mr. Fluffy. Some families have driven hours to retrieve a forgotten stuffed animal from a driver's location. Then there's the driver's perspective, which adds another layer to these stories. Many Uber drivers become temporary guardians of abandoned plush toys, carefully storing them in hopes of reunion. Some drivers report finding stuffed animals weeks later, tucked under seats or wedged between cushions. The condition varies wildly. Some look pristine while others show years of love through missing eyes or patched up seams. What's fascinating is how these items accumulate over time. Drivers occasionally discover small collections of forgotten stuffed animals in their vehicles, creating an unintentional toy library. The recovery rate for these items depends heavily on how quickly parents notice the absence. Quick-thinking families usually succeed in reuniting children with their cherished companions, but delays often mean the stuffed animal joins the growing list of unclaimed treasures in lost and found departments across the rideshare network. 54. Skateboards have become the perfect storm of forgotten items in rideshares. Teens and college students jump into cars after hanging out with friends, their minds buzzing with conversation and plans for later. The board, it slides right under the seat or gets wedged behind their legs, completely invisible until the ride ends. Urban areas see the highest skateboard abandonment rates. Makes sense, right? Cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco and New York have thriving skate cultures where boards aren't just transportation, they're lifestyle statements. Some of these forgotten decks feature custom artwork worth hundreds of dollars, hand-painted designs, limited edition graphics or boards signed by professional skaters get left behind like they're worthless. Well, here's where things get interesting. Drivers often struggle with what to do when they find a 4-foot plank of wood in their backseat. Unlike phones or wallets, skateboards don't fit neatly in lost and found boxes. They take up trunk space, lean awkwardly against walls, and basically announce their presence every time the driver opens their car. Group outings cause the most skateboard casualties. When 4 friends pile into an Uber after a session at the local skate park, someone's board always becomes the forgotten casualty. The weird part is that many riders don't realize their loss until they're ready to skate again, sometimes days later. By then, tracking down that specific driver becomes nearly impossible. Some boards sit in garages for months, waiting for owners who've already moved on to replacement decks. 55. Box of chocolates sits abandoned in the back seat more often than you'd think. Valentine's Day creates a tsunami of forgotten heart-shaped boxes. But the real surprise: these sweet casualties happen year-round. Drivers find everything from gas station Russell Stover to fancy Godiva collections wedged between cushions. The melt factor makes chocolate boxes a driver's nightmare. Summer heat turns premium truffles into expensive brown soup within hours. Smart drivers learn to spot chocolate boxes fast and either contact the passenger immediately or accept they're dealing with a sticky mess. Air conditioning helps, but chocolate waits for no one. Dating disasters fuel most chocolate losses. Picture this: romantic evening goes south. Dejected lover storms out of the Uber. Chocolate gift forgotten in emotional chaos. Then there's the opposite scenario. Date went amazingly well. Couple so distracted by chemistry, they leave their sweet gesture behind. Love makes people forgetful in every direction. Holiday seasons spike chocolate abandonment rates dramatically. Mother's Day, Easter, Christmas. Each celebration brings waves of cocoa casualties. Office workers carrying multiple boxes for co-workers become prime suspects for chocolate forgetfulness. Rush hour plus multiple destinations equals guaranteed losses. The weird part is how few people actually come back for their chocolate. Unlike phones or wallets, chocolate boxes seem expendable once lost. Maybe it's embarrassment, maybe it's the melting concern, or maybe people just buy replacement boxes easier than dealing with retrieval logistics. Some drivers report keeping coolers specifically for chocolate emergencies, though most just accept that February through December means dealing with someone's abandoned sweet intentions on a regular basis. 56. Money talks, but loose change. It screams for attention at all the wrong times. Large bags of coins represent one of the most peculiar categories in Uber's lost and found system. We're talking about hefty sacks that jingle and clank with every turn, filled with quarters, dimes, nickels and pennies that someone desperately needed for their next adventure. Most people don't realize how much a bag full of coins actually weighs until they're lugging it around. A typical grocery bag stuffed with quarters can tip the scales at 15 pounds or more. That's serious weight for what amounts to maybe $40 in face value. The irony, people forget these monetary treasure chests more often than you'd think. Arcade enthusiasts top the list of coin bag abandoners. They load up on quarters for their gaming sessions, then rush out of the Uber in excitement, leaving their investment rolling around the back seat. Laundromat customers run a close second. Nothing says Monday morning panic quite like realizing you forgot your laundry money in last night's ride. Then there's the practical nightmare for drivers. Coins scattered under seats create a percussion section every time they brake or turn. Some drivers report finding individual coins weeks later, still discovering stragglers from that one passenger's monetary mishap. The recovery process gets tricky too. When someone calls about their lost bag of coins, proving ownership becomes almost impossible. How do you verify that someone's approximately $37 in mixed change is actually theirs? Most bags sit unclaimed in lost property offices, eventually sorted and donated to charity. The coins find new purpose, but rarely make it back to their original owner. 57. Soccer cleats get left behind more than you'd think. Players rush out of Ubers after games, minds still buzzing from the match. They grab their gear bags but forget the muddy cleats sitting on the floor mat. Happens all the time. The timing makes it worse. Most soccer games end when players are exhausted, sweating, and just want to get home. That post-game fog hits hard. You're thinking about the missed penalty kick or that amazing save, not checking under your seat for footwear. Cities with major soccer leagues see this constantly. Weekend warriors and serious athletes alike leave expensive cleats behind. Some cost over $200, which makes the loss sting even more. But here's the thing. Most cleats never make it back to their owners, unless they have names written inside. Uber drivers have mixed feelings about soccer gear. The cleats are usually caked with mud and grass stains. Nobody wants that mess sitting in their car for days. Some drivers toss them in the trunk and hope for a quick pickup call. Then there's the identification problem. One black Nike cleat looks pretty much like every other black Nike cleat, without a name tag or unique markings. Proving ownership becomes nearly impossible. Smart players write their names in permanent marker on the tongue or heel. The weirdest part. Some people lose cleats multiple times per season. It's like they're cursed to forever leave footwear behind. Makes you wonder if they're doing it on purpose at some point. 58. Electric toothbrushes show up in Uber lost and found more than you'd think. These aren't your basic drugstore brushes either. We're talking about the fancy ones that cost more than some people's grocery budget. The kind with multiple settings, timers and charging bases that look like mini space stations. Most of these high-tech dental tools get forgotten during morning commutes. Picture this scenario. Someone's rushing to catch their ride to work, juggling coffee, phone and overnight bag. The toothbrush gets tossed in last minute, and somehow slides out during the scramble to exit. By the time they realize it's missing, they're already 3 meetings deep into their day. Here's where it gets weird though. Drivers often have no clue what they're looking at. Some of these electric toothbrushes are so advanced, they resemble medical devices or even adult toys. One driver reported finding what he thought was a weird massage thing, only to discover it was a $300 sonic toothbrush with UV sanitizing capabilities. the real kicker, almost nobody comes back for these things. Maybe it's the hygiene factor, or maybe people figure it's easier to buy a replacement than explain to a stranger why they need their electric toothbrush back. Some drivers end up with collections of abandoned dental equipment in their lost and found boxes. And let's not forget the awkward conversations when someone does call back. "Hi, I left my vibrating toothbrush in your car," doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. Most people just cut their losses and head to the nearest electronics store instead. 59. Perfume bottles might seem like unlikely candidates for the lost and found box, but they show up more often than you'd expect. These tiny glass containers slip out of purses, fall between seats and vanish into the dark corners of rideshare vehicles with surprising frequency. The problem isn't just their small size, it's how easily they blend into the chaos of a busy night out. Young adults account for most perfume losses, particularly after parties, dates, or special events. Makes sense, right? People touch up their scent throughout the evening, then forget to zip the bottle back into their bag. One moment it's sitting on their lap, the next it's rolling under the driver's seat. The rush to exit the car, especially during late-night pickups, creates the perfect storm for forgotten fragrance. But here's where things get interesting. Unlike other lost items that drivers might overlook, perfume bottles announce their presence. The scent lingers in the vehicle long after the passenger has left, creating an aromatic reminder of the forgotten item. Some drivers report discovering bottles days later, guided purely by the smell that refuses to fade from their car's interior. The fragile nature of these bottles adds another layer of complexity. Glass containers don't survive well, bouncing around in a moving vehicle. Many drivers find shattered perfume bottles, leaving them to deal with both the cleanup and the lingering scent. Brand preference plays a huge role in whether owners actually retrieve their lost fragrance. Expensive designer bottles get claimed quickly, while drugstore varieties often remain uncollected indefinitely. 60. Artists everywhere know the pain. You're rushing from a coffee shop meeting, juggling portfolios and art supplies. When your Uber pulls up, you slide in mind buzzing with creative ideas and feedback from your latest critique. The ride ends, you grab your main bag, and walk away feeling accomplished. Then it hits you 3 hours later. Where's your sketchbook? Sketchbooks rank surprisingly high among lost items in rideshares. These aren't just notebooks, they're treasure chests filled with months of doodles, character designs, and half-finished masterpieces that exist nowhere else on Earth. Unlike phones or wallets, you can't just buy a replacement and move on with your life. The weird part is how personal these losses feel. That sketch of your grandmother from memory, gone. The comic strip idea you've been developing for weeks, vanished into the Uber void. Some artists report feeling like they've lost a piece of their soul when their sketchbook disappears. Recovery rates vary wildly depending on one factor: signatures. Smart artists who sign their work or write their contact info inside the front cover have a fighting chance. Drivers can easily identify the owner and reach out through Uber's system. But anonymous sketchbooks, they usually end up in lost and found limbo. Then, there's the timing issue. Art students lose more sketchbooks during finals week, and right after major exhibitions. The rush to get somewhere important overrides the careful check for personal belongings. Coffee shops near art schools report the highest concentration of frantic calls about forgotten sketchbooks. Some drivers have started recognizing the signs. A passenger covered in charcoal smudges frantically patting their pockets usually means another sketchbook rescue mission. 61. Bagpipes are probably the last thing you'd expect to find abandoned in the back of an Uber. Yet here we are, talking about one of the most bizarre lost items drivers encounter. These massive musical instruments don't exactly slip between the seat cushions unnoticed. Most bagpipe losses happen after performances or parades. Musicians load up their gear after a long day of playing, exhausted from entertaining crowds. The adrenaline fades, fatigue kicks in, and suddenly that expensive instrument gets left behind. Well, it's hard to blame them when you're carrying multiple cases and accessories. The sheer size makes bagpipes impossible to ignore. Drivers immediately notice the bulky case taking up half their trunk space. Some cases weigh over 30 pounds, making them a real hassle to store safely. But here's the weird part. Unlike smaller items that get tossed around, bagpipes demand careful handling. Musicians typically reclaim their instruments quickly. The sentimental value alone motivates urgent retrieval efforts. Many bagpipes are family heirlooms passed down through generations. While professional-grade instruments cost thousands of dollars, replacement isn't really an option for most players. Then there's the obvious factor. You can't exactly hide a bagpipe loss from fellow band members. When the pipe section shows up one instrument short for the next performance, everyone knows what happened. The embarrassment alone drives fast recovery efforts. Drivers often remember bagpipe passengers vividly. The combination of traditional Scottish attire, heavy cases, and post-performance exhaustion creates memorable rides. Most importantly, the distinctive appearance makes matching lost instruments with their owners relatively straightforward, compared to generic items like phones or keys. 62. Students panic more about lost calculators than you'd think. These little electronic brains get abandoned in Uber rides at an alarming rate, especially during exam season. The timing isn't random either. Most calculators disappear right when students need them most. Spring semester brings the highest spike in calculator losses. Makes sense, right? Final exams loom, math competitions heat up, and stressed students jump out of rides without checking their pockets. The irony hits hard when they realize their $150 graphing calculator is somewhere in a stranger's car while they're standing outside their calculus final. But here's the weird part. Students actually retrieve these things faster than almost any other lost item. Parents get involved, professors extend deadlines, and suddenly everyone's calling Uber support. The recovery rate shoots up because these aren't just gadgets. They're academic lifelines with custom programs, saved equations, and months of stored data. Then there's the calculator hierarchy. Basic models get forgotten and stay forgotten, but those fancy TI-89s with touch screens, students will track those down like bloodhounds. Some kids have had the same calculator since high school, programmed with shortcuts that took years to perfect. Drivers often don't realize what they're holding. That chunky black rectangle looks ancient compared to smartphones, but it might be worth more than the ride itself. Engineering students especially treat their calculators like sacred objects. Losing one before a thermodynamics exam is basically academic suicide. The desperation in those lost item reports tells the whole story. 63. Board games have this weird ability to bring families together and then immediately get forgotten in the back of an Uber. These boxes of fun turn into boxes of regret faster than you can say Monopoly money. The problem isn't that people don't care about their games, it's that board game nights usually end late. Everyone's tired, and someone's still arguing about whether you can put a hotel on Boardwalk when you don't own all the properties. What makes board games particularly brutal to lose is the scattered pieces situation. A driver might find the main box, but good luck locating all 32 houses from that Monopoly set or the tiny metal boot that somehow rolled under the passenger seat. The dice are probably somewhere near the air freshener, and don't even get started on those little cards that seem to have their own escape plan. Then there's the weekend factor. Board game losses spike dramatically on Saturdays and Sundays, when families are heading home from gatherings. Uncle Bob packed everything up after the big family dinner, but apparently his packing skills don't extend to remembering what he brought. The recovery rates for complete board game sets are disappointingly low because by the time someone realizes they're missing Scrabble, half the tiles have probably joined a completely different lost item adventure. Makes you wonder if these games are plotting their own great escape. 64. Fairy wings might sound like something only toddlers lose, but rideshare drivers report finding these delicate costume accessories more often than you'd expect. Adults heading to Renaissance fairs, comic conventions, or themed parties forget their magical accessories just as frequently as kids do. The sparkly, translucent wings get crushed easily between seats or fall behind cushions during rides. What makes fairy wings particularly tricky is their fragile construction. Most are made from thin plastic or fabric stretched over wire frames. One wrong move, and they're bent beyond repair. Drivers often discover crumpled wings days later, looking like colorful trash rather than costume pieces. The iridescent materials catch light in weird ways, sometimes startling drivers who think they've found something valuable. Then there's the awkward pickup situation. Calling someone to retrieve fairy wings feels silly for both parties involved. "Hi, you left your wings in my car," isn't exactly a normal conversation starter. Many riders feel embarrassed claiming such whimsical items, especially if they're adults who were clearly having way too much fun at whatever event they attended. The seasonal spike is real too. Halloween sees the biggest surge, followed by spring festival season. Comic conventions and cosplay events create mini waves of forgotten wings throughout the year. Some drivers keep a collection of abandoned fairy wings in their trunk, turning their car into an accidental costume shop. A few have mentioned giving unclaimed wings to their own children, which honestly sounds like the perfect solution to this magical problem. 65. Gardening tools might seem like an odd thing to forget in an Uber, but it happens more often than you'd think. Spring brings out the green thumbs, and suddenly drivers are finding spades, hand trowels and pruning shears tucked under seats. Community garden members are the biggest culprits here. They hop in after a long day of planting tomatoes and completely forget their trusty tools. The timing makes perfect sense when you think about it. March through May sees the highest number of forgotten gardening gear. People are excited about their new seedlings, chatting about their garden plans, and boom, they leave their $40 hand cultivator behind. Some riders even forget entire tool bags with gloves, seeds and those fancy ergonomic handles that cost a fortune. What's interesting is how drivers react to these finds. The ones who garden themselves, they're quick to help reunite tools with their owners. But drivers who think a weed whacker is some kind of kitchen gadget, those tools might sit in the trunk for weeks. Then there's the rust factor. Garden tools left in cars during humid months don't age well. The return rate varies wildly too. Cheap plastic tools from the hardware store rarely get claimed, but that expensive Japanese pruning saw your grandfather passed down. You bet someone's calling Uber support within the hour. Professional landscapers are usually the most frantic. Their livelihood literally depends on getting those tools back. Makes you wonder if they should invest in some GPS trackers for their shovels. 66. Comic-Con badges represent something sacred to fans worldwide. These colorful passes unlock entire universes of pop culture paradise. But here's the thing about sacred items. They have a nasty habit of disappearing right when you need them most. The irony hits hard when someone spends months planning their Comic-Con experience, only to lose their badge in an Uber ride home. We're talking about passes that cost hundreds of dollars and sell out faster than limited edition collectibles. Replacement badges, good luck with that. Most conventions have strict no replacement policies, leaving fans scrambling at customer service booths with sob stories that would make Superman cry. Then there's the timing aspect that makes these losses particularly brutal. Most Comic-Con badges get lost during rides from the venue, when exhausted fans are juggling shopping bags full of merchandise, photo ops with celebrities still fresh in their memory, and that post-convention high that makes you forget basic things like checking your pockets. Drivers often find these badges tucked between seat cushions or dropped on floorboards, usually discovered hours after the convention has ended for the day. The laminated passes with their holographic security features look important enough that most drivers attempt to return them through Uber's lost item system. But here's what separates Comic-Con badge losses from other forgotten items. Fans rarely lose them twice. Once you've experienced the panic of potentially missing Stan Lee's final panel because your badge vanished, you develop an almost obsessive habit of checking for it every 30 seconds. That kind of trauma creates permanent behavior changes. 67. Action figures might seem like kid stuff, but the collectible market tells a different story entirely. These plastic heroes and villains left behind in Ubers aren't just toys, they're investments walking out the door. Some riders clutch rare Marvel or DC figures worth hundreds of dollars, only to abandon them during rushed exits after comic book shopping sprees. The irony hits hard when you realize grown adults lose more action figures than actual children do. Comic conventions create perfect storms for forgetfulness. Fans buy exclusive variants, limited editions, and chase figures throughout the day, cramming them into bags alongside autographs and posters. By the time they're riding home, exhausted and overwhelmed, those carefully selected collectibles slip from memory. Then there's the group shopping phenomenon that amplifies losses. Friends hunt for rare finds together, trading duplicates and comparing hauls during the ride home. Conversations run wild about which figures might appreciate in value or complete their collections, but excitement breeds carelessness. Someone sets down a mint-condition Boba Fett to check their phone, and suddenly it's living in an Uber's lost property pile. What makes these losses particularly painful is timing. Many action figures are impulse purchases made at the peak of enthusiasm. Riders discover a figure they've hunted for months, buy it immediately, then lose it within hours. The disappointment compounds because finding that exact figure again might take months more searching. Some collectors even report losing the same rare figure twice in different rides, proving that lightning does strike the same plastic twice. 68. Shopping bags might seem like the most ordinary thing to forget in an Uber, but they're actually the champion of lost items during certain times of the year. During holiday seasons, these bags multiply like rabbits in the back seat. Black Friday alone sees a 300% spike in forgotten shopping bags compared to regular weekdays. The psychology behind this is fascinating. Shoppers are so exhausted from their retail marathon that their brains basically shut down the moment they sit in that Uber. Then there's the sheer volume problem. Multiple bags from different stores create a logistical nightmare. One rider might have 5 bags from the mall, 2 from the electronics store, and 3 more from the grocery run they squeezed in. When you're juggling that many purchases, something's bound to slip through the cracks. The weird part is that people rarely come back for these bags, even when they contain expensive items. Most shopping bags contain clothes and tech accessories, making them surprisingly valuable. But here's the kicker. Replacement becomes so easy that many riders just shrug it off and buy the items again. This creates a strange economy, where Uber drivers sometimes end up with designer clothes or gadgets that nobody claims. Some drivers report finding everything from high-end sneakers to gaming equipment just sitting in their cars for weeks. Well, the festive periods turn this into absolute chaos. Christmas shopping season means drivers are basically running mobile storage units for forgotten purchases. Makes sense, right? When your brain is fried from fighting crowds all day, remembering your shopping bags becomes surprisingly difficult. 69. Small potted plants get forgotten in Ubers way more than you'd think. Spring brings out everyone's inner gardener, and those little green companions often end up abandoned on car seats across the country. The timing makes perfect sense when you consider how many people suddenly decide they need houseplants after months of winter hibernation. Most of these leafy losses happen during those feel-good shopping trips to garden centers and home improvement stores. People get excited about their new plant babies, carefully selecting the perfect pot and soil combination. But then, well, the enthusiasm doesn't always translate to remembering everything when the ride ends. The rush to get inside, combined with juggling keys and bags, creates the perfect storm for plant abandonment. Drivers have mixed feelings about these green passengers. Some appreciate the temporary oxygen boost, while others worry about soil spilling onto their car seats. The dirt issue is real. Those little terracotta pots aren't exactly designed for smooth car rides. One bump too many, and suddenly there's potting soil scattered across the back seat like confetti. The recovery rate for forgotten plants sits pretty low on the priority list. Unlike phones or wallets, that small succulent or spider plant doesn't trigger immediate panic. Most people don't realize their botanical buddy is missing until they're already home, unpacking their other purchases. By then, calling back seems like more effort than just buying another plant. Some drivers end up adopting these green orphans, giving them new homes on their own windowsills. Others simply dispose of them after a few days of wilting. 70. That world's best dad mug sitting in your Uber driver's lost and found collection probably has a story behind it. Father's Day rolls around every June, and suddenly these ceramic declarations of paternal excellence start appearing in rideshares across the country. Kids and teenagers, rushing to surprise dear old dad, clutch these mugs like precious cargo during their rides. The thing about these mugs, they're everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Every drugstore, gas station, and gift shop stocks them by the dozens. Yet when little Timmy leaves his carefully chosen tribute in the back seat of a Honda Civic, it becomes irreplaceable. The emotional weight far exceeds the $3 price tag. Most drivers report finding these mugs tucked between seat cushions or rolling around near cup holders. The classic white ceramic with bold lettering makes them easy to spot during car cleanings. Some feature cartoon ties, others sport fishing themes or golf clubs. The variety is endless, but the sentiment remains identical. What's fascinating is how quickly these items get claimed. Unlike that random phone charger or forgotten umbrella, dad mugs generate immediate panic. Kids realize their mistake within hours, not days. Parents receive frantic calls about the emergency at home. Then there are the drivers who develop soft spots for these lost treasures. Some admit to keeping unclaimed dad mugs as desk decorations or actual coffee cups. After all, they're fathers too, and appreciation never goes out of style, right? The irony isn't lost on anyone when a rideshare driver becomes the beneficiary of someone else's Father's Day gesture. 71. Dog owners are creatures of habit, but they're also masters of forgetting the essentials. Bags of dog treats rank surprisingly high on Uber's lost and found lists, especially in cities where pets are practically family members. These aren't just any treats either. We're talking about the expensive organic, grain-free stuff that costs more than some people's lunch. Most of these forgotten treat bags happen after vet visits. Picture this stressed pet parent, anxious dog, rushed appointment, quick Uber ride home. The treats get tossed in the back seat along with prescription bottles and paperwork. Then boom, door slams, ride ends, treats forgotten. The irony, the dog at home is probably doing that head tilt thing, wondering where their promised rewards disappeared to. Here's where it gets interesting though. Uber drivers are surprisingly good about returning pet supplies quickly, way better than they are with, say, random phone chargers or sunglasses. Maybe it's because they picture some poor golden retriever missing out on their favorite bacon-flavored biscuits, or perhaps drivers are pet owners themselves and understand the panic. But let's be real about what actually happens to those forgotten treats. Some drivers absolutely share them with their own dogs during breaks. Can you blame them? A bag of premium salmon treats sitting in the car for 3 days straight is basically asking to be sampled. The funny part is that dogs don't care about brand loyalty. A treat is a treat, whether it was meant for Fluffy or Rex. 72. Fencing swords end up abandoned in Ubers more often than you'd expect. These aren't your typical movie prop swords either. We're talking about legitimate sports equipment complete with protective tips and regulation grips. The fencing community might be small, but their forgetfulness rate, surprisingly high. Most of these blade mishaps happen after practice sessions or tournaments. Young fencers, exhausted from hours of lunging and parrying, slide into rideshares with their gear bags and simply zone out. The sword gets propped against the door or laid across the back seat, and boom, forgotten the moment they step out. But here's where it gets interesting for drivers. Finding a sword in your back seat creates an immediate "what do I do now" moment. Some panic, thinking they've got a weapon situation. Others assume it's a costume prop left over from some medieval-themed party. The reality, it's just expensive sports gear that costs anywhere from $50 to $300 to replace. Then there's the security concern angle. Airport pickups become awkward when you're explaining to security why there's a sword in your vehicle. Even though fencing equipment is perfectly legal, try convincing a concerned officer at 2 a.m. that the blade belongs to a teenage athlete, not a wannabe vigilante. The good news? Fencing swords have one of the highest return rates among lost items. Their uniqueness makes them impossible to ignore, and the tight-knit fencing community means word travels fast when someone's missing their weapon. Most fencers get reunited with their gear within 48 hours. 73. Magic card decks disappear from Uber rides more often than you'd think. Tournament players clutch their collections like treasure, but exhaustion after long gaming sessions makes even the most careful players forget their prized possessions. These aren't your average playing cards either. Some decks contain individual cards worth hundreds of dollars, with rare holographic editions that collectors hunt for years to find. The gaming community takes these losses seriously. Well, they have to. A single tournament legal deck can represent months of careful trading and significant financial investment. Players often customize their collections with sleeve protectors and personal modifications, making each deck as unique as a fingerprint. When someone loses their deck, they're not just losing cards, they're losing strategy, memories, and sometimes their ticket to upcoming competitions. Late-night rides home from gaming stores and tournament venues create the perfect storm for forgotten decks. Players stuff cards into jacket pockets or small bags, then slide into Uber seats while their minds replay epic matches or devastating defeats. The adrenaline from competition clouds their usual careful habits. Many discover their loss only when preparing for the next game session, sometimes days later. But here's the weird part. Most valuable decks actually get returned. The gaming community is tight-knit, and drivers often recognize the significance of what they've found. Some decks contain handwritten notes between cards, strategy reminders, or lucky charms that reveal just how personal these collections become. Makes sense that something so meaningful would eventually find its way home, right? 74. Coffee beans might seem like an innocent grocery item, but they've become a surprisingly common casualty in the rideshare world. These aromatic little treasures get left behind more often than you'd think, especially after those weekend trips to specialty roasters or bulk shopping runs. The smell alone gives them away immediately. Drivers know when someone's forgotten their precious caffeine stash. What's fascinating is the range of coffee that gets abandoned. We're talking everything from basic supermarket grounds to $1.40 per pound single origin beans from that trendy roastery downtown. Some passengers splurge on these exotic blends, then rush out of the car without their liquid gold. The irony, they probably need that coffee more than anyone else, considering they're scattered enough to leave it behind in the first place. Then there's the timing factor. Most coffee bean abandonment happens during early morning grocery runs or weekend errands. People are either half asleep or juggling multiple bags, making it easy to forget that one crucial purchase. But here's the kicker. The fragrance lingers in the car for hours afterward, creating an accidental aromatherapy session for the next few passengers. Recovery rates for forgotten coffee beans sit pretty low. Unlike phones or wallets, most people don't immediately panic about missing coffee. They might not even realize it's gone until they're standing in their kitchen the next morning staring at an empty counter. By then those beans have likely found a new home or been tossed by a driver who couldn't track down the owner. 75. Cyclists know the feeling all too well. You pack your gear, head out for a ride, then catch an Uber home afterward. The bike pump gets tossed in the back seat, and somehow it just disappears into the car's black hole. These compact little devices are lifesavers for anyone serious about cycling, but they're also surprisingly easy to forget. Most bike pumps left behind happen during those early morning rides when coffee hasn't kicked in yet. Riders throw their gear in the car, exhausted from their workout, and completely space out on the essentials. The pump usually gets buried under water bottles, towels and whatever else cyclists drag along. By the time they're home it's long gone. Here's the thing about bike pumps though, they're one of those items people actually try to get back. Unlike a random water bottle or cheap headphones, a good pump costs real money. Plus cyclists tend to get attached to their gear. They know exactly which pump they own, what brand it is, and how it works. Smart riders often write their names or phone numbers directly on their pumps with permanent marker. Makes sense, right? This simple trick actually works pretty well for returns. Drivers can easily identify the owner and make contact through Uber's system. But here's where it gets interesting. Some drivers who are also cyclists will keep unclaimed bike pumps in their cars as emergency backup. They've learned that helping stranded riders with flat tires sometimes leads to better tips. One driver's forgotten pump becomes another cyclist's roadside salvation. The cycling community works in mysterious ways sometimes. 76. Parents rushing through their day with a screaming toddler in the back seat rarely notice when they forget essentials. Bags of diapers represent one of those oh no moments that hits when you're already 3 blocks away from your Uber. The panic sets in fast. No parent wants to explain to their partner why little Emma is wearing a makeshift diaper made from paper towels and duct tape. These bulk packages disappear more often than you'd think. Most get left behind during those chaotic family outings where everyone's juggling car seats, strollers and crying babies. The math is simple. More stuff equals more forgotten stuff. Drivers find everything from generic store brands to premium organic diapers wedged under seats or shoved into door pockets. But here's the thing about diaper bags. Parents come back for them fast. Unlike other forgotten items that sit in lost and found for weeks, diapers get claimed within hours. Need drives urgency. When your kid needs changing and you've got no backup supply, you'll track down that Uber driver like a detective. The bulk factor makes returns tricky though. Those giant Costco-sized packages take up serious trunk space. Some drivers admit they've donated unopened packages to local shelters rather than storing them for weeks. Can't blame them. A 200-count box of size 3 diapers isn't exactly glove compartment material. Weekend family trips generate the highest diaper loss rates. Parents loading and unloading multiple bags often grab the obvious stuff like purses and phones while leaving the less glamorous necessities behind. The irony, those forgotten diapers usually cost more than everything else they remembered to take. 77. Writers and screenwriters live in a constant state of creative chaos. Notebooks scattered across coffee tables, post-it notes stuck to laptop screens, and drafts printed on every available surface. When they're rushing between meetings with producers or agents, something's bound to get left behind. Movie scripts top the list of forgotten items among Hollywood's creative class. These aren't just any random papers either. We're talking about months or even years of work crammed into a stack of pages. Some scripts contain handwritten notes in the margins, dialogue changes scribbled between scenes, or contact information for key industry players. The panic that sets in when a writer realizes their screenplay is missing. That's pure terror right there. Hollywood cities like Los Angeles and New York see the highest rates of abandoned scripts. Makes sense, right? More meetings mean more opportunities to forget your life's work in the back of an Uber. The worst part is that many scripts are one-of-a-kind drafts with personal annotations that can't be replicated. But here's where it gets interesting. Most scripts actually do get returned to their owners. Writers are incredibly motivated to track down their lost work, often calling Uber support within hours of realizing their mistake. They'll provide detailed descriptions of their script covers, character names, or even specific scenes to prove ownership. Drivers sometimes find themselves accidentally reading a few pages while waiting for pickup confirmation. Some have stumbled across scripts that later became major movies. Well, that's what they claim anyway. The entertainment industry runs on these paper dreams, and losing one feels like watching your future slip away in traffic. 78. Walking across that graduation stage feels like the biggest moment of your life. You've spent years working toward this single piece of paper that proves you actually made it through school. The diploma represents late nights, stress-filled exams, and probably way too much coffee. But here's the crazy part. After all that effort, some graduates manage to leave their diplomas behind in Uber cars. It happens more than you'd think, especially right after graduation ceremonies. Students are riding high on excitement, posing for photos, and celebrating with family. The adrenaline rush makes it easy to forget that rolled-up paper sitting on the back seat. Makes sense, right? You're thinking about parties, job interviews, or just finally being done with school forever. Then there's the group celebration factor. When you're cramming into an Uber with friends, everyone's talking and laughing. Someone's holding flowers, another person has a cap, and your diploma just gets lost in the shuffle. Plus, many graduates are wearing those bulky gowns that make everything awkward to carry. The panic hits later that night, or the next morning. You realize that expensive piece of paper with your name on it is missing. Most people contact Uber support immediately because replacing a diploma takes weeks and costs money. Universities don't just hand out copies for free. But here's what's interesting. MIDA's graduation diplomas actually have a pretty high return rate. Drivers recognize how important they are, and graduates are quick to report them missing. Unlike a random water bottle, nobody's going to ignore a lost diploma. The emotional value is just too high to let it disappear forever. 79. Cat carriers might seem like obvious items to remember, but they're forgotten in Ubers more often than you'd think. These plastic or fabric boxes usually contain more than just empty space. Most have soft blankets, favorite toys, or even half-eaten treats still inside when left behind. Pet owners typically use rideshare services when taking their cats to the vet or during apartment moves. The stress of these situations makes it easy to grab the cat and forget the carrier entirely. After a long vet appointment, especially if the cat received shots or treatment, owners focus on comforting their pet and overlook the empty carrier sitting in the back seat. Drivers sometimes mistake cat carriers for regular luggage at first glance. The confusion gets worse when carriers look like small suitcases or gym bags. Only when they try to move them do they notice the wire door or ventilation holes that give away the item's true purpose. Then there's the issue of replacement cost. Quality cat carriers range from $30 to over $100. Unlike a forgotten water bottle, this represents real money for pet owners. Most people contact Uber's lost item service within hours of realizing their mistake. The weird part is how many carriers still smell like the cat days after being forgotten. Drivers report finding carriers that clearly haven't been cleaned in months, complete with fur stuck to the interior walls. Some contain prescription medication bottles or vet paperwork with appointment reminders, making the loss even more problematic for busy pet parents trying to keep track of their animals' health records. 80. Race bibs might look like worthless pieces of paper, but runners treat them like treasure. These numbered tags get pinned to shirts during marathons, fun runs, and charity events. Then something weird happens. After crossing the finish line, exhausted runners climb into Ubers and completely forget about their hard-earned proof of participation. The timing makes perfect sense when you think about it. You've just run 26.2 miles, your legs feel like jello, and you're probably dehydrated. Your brain isn't exactly firing on all cylinders. You rip off that sweaty bib, toss it on the seat, and focus on getting home to collapse. Hours later you realize your marathon memento is gone forever. But here's the thing about race bibs: most people never try to get them back. Unlike phones or wallets, these paper rectangles serve their purpose once you finish the race. Sure, some runners like keeping them as souvenirs or posting them on social media. Most just shrug it off though. Then there are the big events like the Boston Marathon or New York City Marathon. Those bibs carry serious bragging rights. Qualifying for Boston takes years of training and hitting specific time goals. Losing that bib feels like losing proof you accomplished something incredible. Makes sense why some runners frantically call Uber support trying to track down their number. Race sponsors sometimes step in to help reunite runners with lost bibs. They keep databases of participant numbers and can verify who ran what race. Still, the majority of these colorful paper rectangles end up in lost and found boxes waiting for owners who never come back. 81. Personal journals represent some of the most emotionally charged items left behind in rideshare vehicles. These aren't just notebooks filled with grocery lists or meeting notes. We're talking about deeply personal collections of thoughts, dreams, sketches, and memories that people have poured their hearts into over months or years. When someone realizes they've left a box of journals in an Uber, panic sets in faster than you can say 5-star rating. The attachment owners feel to these items creates an urgency unlike almost any other lost possession. A phone can be replaced in a few hours. Keys might cost you a locksmith visit. But journals, those contain pieces of someone's soul that can never be recreated. The handwritten pages, the coffee stains from late-night writing sessions, the pressed flowers tucked between pages, all irreplaceable. Then there's the privacy concern that makes this situation even more complex. Most journal owners contact Uber support within minutes of realizing their mistake. They're practically begging for their intimate thoughts back before some stranger starts reading about their deepest fears or secret crushes. Smart drivers understand this sensitivity and rarely peek inside, treating these items like sealed envelopes. What's fascinating is how quickly these boxes get claimed compared to other items. While expensive electronics might sit in a lost and found system for weeks, journals typically reunite with their owners within 24 hours. The emotional investment people have in their written words creates a recovery rate that would make smartphone manufacturers jealous. Makes perfect sense when you think about it. 82. Hiking boots might seem like the last thing anyone would forget in an Uber, but outdoor enthusiasts apparently have selective memory after a long day on the trails. These heavy, often mud-caked boots get left behind more frequently than you'd expect. The irony, people spend hundreds of dollars on quality hiking gear, then abandon it in the back of a sedan. Weekend warriors are the biggest culprits here. They finish a grueling hike, exhausted and probably dehydrated, slide into that air-conditioned Uber, and completely zone out. The relief of finally sitting down after miles of rocky terrain makes their brains shut off. Those expensive Merrell or Salomon boots, forgotten faster than last week's grocery list. But here's the thing about hiking boots. They're impossible to miss once you spot them. They're bulky, they smell like adventure mixed with sweat, and they're usually covered in enough dirt to start a small garden. Drivers notice them immediately during their post-ride cleanup. The real question is whether they want to deal with storing those dirty things until the owner remembers. The replacement cost factor kicks in pretty quickly though. Quality hiking boots aren't cheap, and serious hikers know their gear. Most people realize their mistake within hours and frantically contact Uber support. The panic sets in when they remember they have another hiking trip planned next weekend. Without proper boots, that mountain isn't going to climb itself. Smart drivers keep these items safe. Grateful hikers often tip generously when reunited with their forgotten footwear. 83. Moving day stress hits everyone differently. Some people forget their coffee maker, others leave behind their favorite pillow, but forgetting your hamster cage, that's next level chaos right there. The small pet carriers show up in Uber lost and found reports more than you'd think. These aren't just empty cages either. Sometimes there's a tiny furry resident still inside, wondering where the heck their human went. Drivers have reported finding everything from hamsters to guinea pigs to small birds chirping away in the back seat. What makes this particularly wild is the urgency factor. When someone calls about a lost phone, there's usually some patience involved. Lost hamster cage with Mr. Whiskers still inside. That's a 5-alarm emergency. The poor little guy needs food, water, and familiar surroundings. Most of these incidents happen during apartment moves or trips to the vet. Families juggle multiple pet supplies, kids are crying and chaos takes over. The cage gets loaded into the car, then somehow forgotten when everyone piles out at their destination. Drivers who discover these furry passengers face an interesting dilemma. Do you become a temporary pet sitter? Call animal control? Drive around looking for panicked pet owners? The good news is recovery rates for live animals are incredibly high. Pet owners move heaven and earth to get their babies back. Some drivers have even made lasting friendships after returning a beloved hamster or guinea pig. Nothing bonds people quite like saving a tiny life that depends on you completely. 84. Tech accessories pile up in rideshare vehicles like forgotten memories. Charging cables get bundled together and abandoned by passengers who rush out after late-night rides or early morning commutes. These aren't just single cords either. We're talking complete cable sets with multiple connectors, adapters, and even portable battery packs all stuffed into one bag. Apple Lightning cables dominate the lost and found reports, but Android users contribute plenty too. USB-C, micro USB, and those older 30-pin connectors from ancient iPhones all make appearances. Passengers pack these cable bundles for trips, thinking they'll need every possible charging option. Then stress kicks in, phones start ringing, and out the door they go, leaving their entire mobile power arsenal behind. Most drivers don't even bother holding onto these cable sets for long. Why would they? Replacement charging cables cost maybe $10 at any gas station. The emotional attachment just isn't there like it would be for a wallet or phone. Some drivers actually benefit from the situation, keeping a few extra cables in their glove compartment for emergencies or future passengers with dead batteries. Business travelers lose these cable bundles most frequently, especially around airports and hotel districts. They're juggling laptops, phones, tablets, and portable speakers, all requiring different charging solutions. The irony hits hard when they realize their expensive devices are useless without power. But here's the thing. Tech users have learned to treat charging cables as disposable. They buy them in bulk online, so losing a few doesn't create the same panic as losing keys or important documents. 85. Ice skates get left behind more than you'd think. When winter sports season hits, Uber drivers suddenly become unofficial lost and found managers for sharp metal blades strapped to leather boots. The pattern is predictable. Families rush out of ice rinks, kids exhausted from skating lessons, parents juggling snacks and water bottles. Someone always forgets the skates. Hockey players are surprisingly bad at this too. You'd expect athletes to keep better track of their gear, but late-night practices create perfect conditions for forgetfulness. They toss equipment bags in trunks, hop in cars dead tired, and boom, expensive skates become the driver's problem. Some of these things cost more than what most people spend on regular shoes in a year. Then there's the rental confusion factor. Half the time, riders genuinely can't remember if they're wearing their own skates or borrowed ones from the rink. Drivers find themselves playing detective, trying to figure out if those beat-up figure skates belong to a passenger or should go back to Riverside Ice Arena. The scratched-up rental numbers usually give it away. Winter cities see the most action here. Places like Minneapolis, Boston, and Toronto deal with forgotten skates weekly during peak season. Parents call back frantically because tomorrow's practice depends on finding those missing blades. The smart drivers, they've learned to do a quick sweep of floor mats before the next pickup. Nothing ruins your day like discovering a pair of size 8 hockey skates wedged under your passenger seat 3 rides later. 86. Skate helmets might seem like the kind of thing you'd never forget, but tell that to the countless young riders who've left theirs behind in Ubers across the country. These protective gear pieces show up in lost and found offices with surprising regularity, especially in cities where skateboarding and scootering are part of daily life. The typical story goes like this. A teenager finishes a session at the skate park, hops in an Uber with friends and gets so caught up in reliving their best tricks that the helmet slides off their lap and under the seat. By the time they realize it's missing, they're already 3 blocks from home. Well, at least their heads are intact, right? Parents are usually the ones frantically calling about lost skate helmets. Makes sense when you consider these aren't just accessories, they're safety equipment that cost anywhere from $30 to over $100. The good ones with proper certifications don't come cheap, and responsible parents aren't letting their kids ride without them. Then there's the identification factor. Smart parents write names or phone numbers inside the helmets, which makes returns much easier for drivers. But plenty of helmets arrive at Uber's lost item centers completely anonymous, covered in stickers from skate brands or local shops that offer zero clues about ownership. Drivers generally take good care of helmets they find because they understand the safety importance. Some even keep them in their trunks for weeks, hoping the rider will remember and reach out. The weird part is how often these helmets get confused with bike helmets in lost item reports, creating mix-ups that delay reunions even longer. 87. Kids across America have one thing in common with college students. They both lose their science project posters in Ubers at an alarming rate. These colorful, oversized displays of volcanic eruptions and solar system models get forgotten more than you'd think. The timing makes perfect sense when you dig into it. Spring semester brings science fairs, school competitions, and those dreaded presentations that determine final grades. Students rush from school to home, poster boards tucked under their arms like awkward shields. Then comes the Uber ride. The excitement of finishing a project, combined with exhaustion from staying up late gluing cotton balls to poster board, creates the perfect storm for forgetfulness. These aren't small items either. We're talking about trifold displays that barely fit through car doors. Some posters stretch 3 feet wide, covered in colorful charts about photosynthesis or detailed drawings of the human digestive system. The weird part is how drivers can miss something so obvious until their next passenger points it out. Parents frantically call Uber support when they realize little Timmy's volcano project is missing. The one that's due first period tomorrow morning. Teachers sometimes get involved, knowing that weeks of work just vanished into the backseat of a Honda Civic somewhere across town. But here's what's really interesting about these lost posters. Unlike phones or wallets, they have zero resale value. Drivers can't pawn a poster about how plants grow or sell someone's research on why ice melts. These academic masterpieces usually get returned, because honestly, what else would you do with a poster explaining photosynthesis? 88. Musicians and their instruments share a bond that's almost sacred. So when a trumpet gets left behind in an Uber, it's not just another lost item, it's someone's voice gone silent. These brass beauties are among the most memorable finds for drivers, partly because they're impossible to ignore, and partly because they represent something bigger than just forgotten stuff. The weight alone makes trumpets hard to miss. We're talking about instruments that tip the scales at several pounds, usually tucked inside hard cases that drivers can't overlook during their post-ride cleanup. But here's what's fascinating. Trumpet losses spike dramatically near music schools, concert halls, and places where high school marching bands practice. Makes sense, right? Students juggling sheet music, instrument cases, and backpacks are prime candidates for leaving something behind. Then there's the urgency factor. Unlike a forgotten phone charger or pair of sunglasses, musicians need their instruments back immediately. Band practice waits for no one. Concert performances don't get rescheduled because someone left their trumpet in a Toyota Camry. This creates a unique dynamic where drivers often field frantic calls within hours of drop-off, and the weird part is how quickly these instruments get reunited with their owners. While most lost items in rideshares never make it back home, trumpets have an almost magical return rate. Maybe it's because they're expensive to replace. Maybe it's because musicians are more organized about tracking their gear, or maybe drivers just feel bad knowing someone's musical dreams are sitting in their trunk, waiting to be rescued from automotive limbo. 89. Cookies have this magical way of disappearing from rideshare cars. Not because drivers are sneaking bites, though that probably happens more than anyone admits. These sweet treats get forgotten at an alarming rate, especially during those frantic grocery runs when riders juggle multiple errands in one trip. The scent gives them away immediately. Drivers know within seconds when someone's left behind a box of cookies, fresh baked chocolate chip from grandma's kitchen. That smell lingers for hours. Store-bought sandwich cookies. Still noticeable, just less homey. Either way, the aroma becomes an instant reminder of the passenger's forgetfulness. But here's the thing about forgotten cookies. They rarely get claimed. Unlike phones or wallets, people don't panic over missing desserts. Maybe they figure it's easier to buy another box than coordinate a pickup with their driver, or perhaps they're secretly relieved someone else will handle the temptation. Then there's the driver's dilemma. Professional ethics say don't touch passenger belongings. Human nature says those oatmeal raisin cookies are just sitting there, getting stale. Some drivers report the cookies through official channels and wait. Others make executive decisions about perishable items that won't survive long anyway. The busiest cookie-losing days coincide with holidays and weekends. Sunday grocery runs produce the most forgotten treats, followed closely by pre-party shopping trips. Birthday cake cookies, holiday-themed varieties, and bulk purchases from warehouse stores top the abandonment list. Makes you wonder if people subconsciously want to leave their sweet temptations behind. 90. Gym bags stuffed with sweaty clothes, protein shakers, and workout shoes get left behind more than you'd think. Athletes rush out after grueling training sessions, completely forgetting their gear in the back seat. The irony: these are the same people who obsess over every rep and calorie, but somehow miss a bag full of their essentials. Post-evening workouts see the highest rates of forgotten gym equipment. Exhausted riders stumble out of cars, minds already focused on hot showers and recovery meals. Their workout bags, still sitting where they tossed them during the ride. Drivers often discover these abandoned athletic treasures hours later, sometimes still damp with post-workout moisture. Then there's the hygiene factor that makes recovery complicated. Nobody wants to handle someone else's sweaty workout clothes, even if they're tucked inside expensive gear bags. Many drivers simply refuse to store these items for extended periods. The smell alone can linger in vehicles for days, creating an awkward situation for everyone involved. City commuters account for the majority of these losses. Rush hour fitness enthusiasts grab rides between work and gym, then home again. That's 3 different locations where bags can slip from memory. Professional athletes aren't immune either. Even they've been known to leave behind custom equipment worth hundreds of dollars. The replacement cycle for workout gear is surprisingly routine among fitness fanatics. Most serious gym goers maintain backup equipment at home, knowing that forgetting essentials is part of the active lifestyle. Some even joke that leaving gear behind is just another form of interval training for their wallets. 91. Prom night. The biggest dance of high school. Months of planning, dress shopping, and finding the perfect date. Everything has to be absolutely perfect. And for many teenage girls, that includes getting a beautiful corsage to wear on their wrist. These delicate floral bracelets are more than just accessories. They're symbols of romance, tradition, and one of the most important nights in a young person's life. Made from fresh flowers like roses, orchids, or baby's breath, they're carefully crafted to match the dress, the theme, or simply the wearer's personality. Some cost $20, others push $100 for something truly spectacular. But here's the thing about corsages, they're surprisingly easy to forget in an Uber. After hours of dancing, taking photos, and celebrating with friends, exhausted teenagers pile into rideshare cars at 2 in the morning. The corsage comes off tired wrists and gets tossed onto seats or floors without a second thought. Most drivers discover these forgotten flowers during their next shift. The delicate petals might still look fresh, or they could already be wilting from the heat. Either way, the emotional value hits different than other lost items. This isn't just some random object, it represents someone's special night, their memories, their first formal dance experience. The reality, most prom corsages never make it back to their owners. By the time anyone remembers where it was left, the flowers have usually died, and honestly, once prom night is over, many teenagers are too caught up in graduation preparations to chase down their forgotten wrist candy. 92. Pizza boxes pile up in Uber. Lost and found departments across America like greasy cardboard monuments to late-night bad decisions. The smell hits drivers immediately, that unmistakable combination of cheese, pepperoni, and regret that screams someone's definitely forgetting their leftovers tonight. Most pizza abandonment happens between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., when passengers are more focused on getting home than remembering their half-eaten dinner. Makes sense, right? After a night out, people stumble into cars with pizza boxes balanced precariously on their laps, only to slide out at their destination completely forgetting about tomorrow's breakfast. The weird part is how quickly these boxes become a driver's problem. Unlike phones or wallets that might sit unnoticed for hours, pizza boxes announce themselves with aggressive aromatics that fill the entire vehicle. Some drivers report the smell lingering for days, even after removing the forgotten feast. Then there's the mess factor. Pizza boxes don't just disappear quietly, they leak. Grease stains on seats become permanent reminders of someone else's midnight munchies. Drivers often find themselves cleaning cheese residue from upholstery, adding insult to injury when the pizza owner never even calls back. But here's what's really fascinating. Pizza boxes represent peak throwaway culture in the lost and found world. While people desperately search for lost phones worth hundreds of dollars, leftover pizza worth maybe $15 gets written off instantly. Most drivers end up tossing these cardboard casualties after their shift ends, creating the ultimate food waste scenario where perfectly good pizza meets the dumpster instead of someone's stomach. 93. Music fans and their concert posters create one of the more amusing categories in Uber's lost and found department. These rolled-up pieces of memorabilia get forgotten with surprising frequency, especially after late-night shows when adrenaline is high and exhaustion kicks in. The irony, most posters are pretty hard to miss due to their size, yet riders somehow manage to leave them behind anyway. The emotional attachment to these items varies wildly depending on the artist. A poster from a local band's garage show might never get claimed, while memorabilia from a major touring act often triggers frantic calls within hours. Drivers report finding everything from vintage rock posters worth hundreds of dollars to hastily printed flyers for underground shows. Some passengers treat these items like priceless artifacts, while others seem to forget they exist the moment they step out of the car. What's particularly interesting is the timing pattern. Concert poster losses spike dramatically on weekends, with Thursday through Sunday accounting for nearly 80% of all reported cases. The correlation with live music schedules is obvious, but the peak happens between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. when venues are closing and people are rushing to catch rides home. Then there's the return process itself. Most music fans who lose posters use Uber's in-app reporting system within 24 hours, making these items among the fast acclaimed lost objects. Drivers often roll them up carefully and store them in their trunks, understanding that these paper souvenirs represent more than just decoration. They're physical memories of experiences that can't be replicated. 94. Feather boas might seem like something from a 1920s speakeasy, but they're surprisingly common lost items in rideshare cars today. These fluffy accessories pop up in Uber's lost and found reports more than you'd expect, especially during party seasons and Halloween. The soft, wispy texture makes them perfect for hiding in seat crevices where passengers can't spot them during quick exits. Clubgoers are the main culprits here. After a night of dancing and drinks, that bright pink or electric blue boa becomes an afterthought when the ride ends. The feathers blend into dark car interiors, making them nearly invisible until drivers do their end-of-shift cleanup. Sometimes these accessories get mistaken for regular clothing items, leading to confusion when passengers try to describe what they've lost. Well, here's the kicker: most feather boas never make it back to their owners. Unlike phones or wallets, people don't frantically search for party accessories the next morning. The hangover usually takes priority. Drivers report finding boas weeks after busy weekend shifts, buried under floor mats or wrapped around seat adjustment levers. The really strange part: some passengers lose the same type of boa multiple times throughout the year. Costume parties, bachelorette celebrations and drag shows create a steady stream of abandoned feathers. Drivers in cities with active nightlife scenes keep small bags just for collecting these colorful remnants of someone's wild night out. The cleanup crew at Uber's lost item warehouses probably has enough feather boas to stock a vintage clothing store. 95. Day planners used to rule the professional world before smartphones took over. These little leather-bound books containing someone's entire life schedule get left behind in Ubers more often than you'd think. What's fascinating is that most of these forgotten planners belong to people who should theoretically be the most organized among us. The typical day planner loss happens during those frantic morning commutes. Picture this: a busy executive juggling coffee, phone and briefcase while sliding out of an Uber. The planner tucked under an arm or sitting on the seat becomes an afterthought. But here's where it gets interesting. These books contain incredibly personal information: doctor appointments, meeting notes, family birthdays, even vacation plans. Most drivers who find day planners face a unique dilemma. Unlike phones or wallets, there's no obvious way to contact the owner without opening the book and reading private information. Some drivers return them unopened through Uber's lost item system, treating them like sealed envelopes. Others peek just enough to find a phone number or email address. The irony runs deep here. These are the same people who pride themselves on being organized, yet they're leaving their organizational Bible in the back of a stranger's car. Makes you wonder about the stress levels of modern professionals, right? Then there's the digital transition factor. Many people are slowly shifting from physical planners to smartphone apps, but they're not quite ready to give up paper entirely. This creates a weird limbo where the planner becomes less essential and therefore easier to forget. 96. Dog groomers transport some pretty odd stuff after appointments, but nothing beats the bag of dog hair that gets left behind in rideshares. Yes, you read that right. Pet owners actually collect their furry friends' freshly trimmed locks and forget them in the back seat. Why would anyone want a bag of dog hair? Well, some people use it for crafting or donate it to wildlife rehabilitation centers where it helps birds build nests. Others keep it as a bizarre keepsake from their pet's spa day. Makes sense, right? Actually, no, it doesn't. The real kicker is how drivers react when they discover these mysterious bags. One Uber driver in Seattle thought someone had left behind a bag of expensive yarn until he opened it. Another driver in Denver found what looked like a small pillow stuffed with fluff, only to realize it was 3 months' worth of golden retriever fur from a professional grooming session. Most of these hairy discoveries get tossed in the trash faster than you can say Fido. Drivers aren't exactly lining up to store bags of pet hair in their cars for weeks. Can you blame them? The smell alone makes most people gag, especially when it's been sitting in a hot car for hours. But here's the weird part. Some owners actually call back looking for their precious fur collection. They'll frantically contact Uber support, explaining how important that bag of hair is for their upcoming craft project. The return rate? Almost zero. Turns out even the most dedicated pet parents draw the line somewhere. 97. When people think about what gets left behind in rideshares, they usually picture phones or wallets, but mini fridges. That's where things get interesting. These compact appliances show up in Uber's lost and found reports more often than you'd expect, especially during college move-in seasons and apartment relocations. The logistics alone make mini fridges a nightmare for drivers. We're talking about a 30-pound box that won't fit in a glove compartment or under a seat. Most drivers end up wrestling these things into their trunk, where they sit like unwanted house guests until someone claims them. The weird part is how often passengers forget they even brought one in the first place. College students are the biggest culprits here. They're moving dorm rooms, stressed about finals, and suddenly that essential dorm room appliance becomes someone else's problem. The rush of getting out of an Uber with multiple bags and boxes means the mini fridge gets left behind while everything else makes it to the destination. Then there's the storage issue for drivers. Unlike a forgotten phone that slides into a cup holder, mini fridges demand real estate. Some drivers report keeping them for days, unsure whether to contact Uber support or just donate the thing to charity. The return rate is actually pretty high though. Turns out people really need their mini fridges back. Most of these incidents happen in major cities during peak moving seasons. Boston, Austin and other college towns see spikes in mini fridge abandonments every August and January when students relocate. 98. Fuzzy dice hanging from rearview mirrors used to be the ultimate car accessory back in the day. You'd see them swinging in muscle cars, lowriders and beat-up sedans alike. But here's the thing, they're still getting lost in Ubers today, which is honestly pretty wild when you think about it. Who brings fuzzy dice to a rideshare? Well, turns out plenty of people do. Partygoers grab them as decorations, nostalgic passengers carry them as good luck charms, and some folks just think they're hilarious. The problem is, once you're buzzed after a night out, those little fabric cubes become invisible. They slip between seats, roll under floor mats, or get kicked into that mysterious car void where everything disappears. The weird part is how rarely anyone comes back for them. Unlike phones or wallets, fuzzy dice just don't make the "oh crap, I need to get that back" list. Maybe it's because they're cheap to replace. Maybe it's because explaining to an Uber driver that you lost your lucky dice feels embarrassing. Or maybe people just forget they even had them in the first place. Drivers find these things weeks later during deep cleaning sessions. Sometimes they're wedged so far back in the trunk that they become archaeological discoveries. One driver in Vegas reportedly found 17 pairs over 6 months. Apparently the city's party scene generates serious fuzzy dice casualties. Most drivers just toss them or keep them as quirky souvenirs from their strangest passengers. 99. Eco-friendly bags have become the ultimate modern tragedy of good intentions gone wrong. People buy them to save the planet, carry them everywhere, and then somehow manage to forget them in the back seat of an Uber after a grocery run. These reusable tote bags are showing up in lost and found collections at an alarming rate, especially during holiday shopping seasons when everyone's juggling multiple errands and rushing between stores. The irony hits hard when you think about it. Someone spends extra money on a bag specifically designed to be reused, only to abandon it after one trip. Most of these forgotten totes are loaded with groceries, making the discovery even more frustrating for drivers who have to deal with potentially spoiling food items. Well, at least the intention was noble, right? Then there's the branding factor that makes things interesting. Canvas bags with company logos, quirky sayings, or local business names rarely get claimed by their owners. The recovery rate for these bags sits embarrassingly low because most people view them as easily replaceable items rather than valuable possessions worth the hassle of retrieval. But the real kicker, holiday shopping periods see a massive spike in forgotten tote bags. Black Friday, Christmas shopping, and back-to-school seasons turn Uber cars into temporary storage units for abandoned eco-friendly bags. Drivers report finding multiple totes from different passengers in a single shift, creating a small collection of good environmental intentions that somehow missed their mark. The bags pile up in lost property offices, waiting for owners who probably just bought replacement bags instead of bothering to track down their originals. 100. Tennis rackets might seem too big to lose, but athletes manage it all the time. The bulky equipment gets forgotten in Ubers more than you'd think, especially after intense matches when players are exhausted and distracted. Their minds are still replaying that final serve or missed shot. Most tennis racket losses happen near sports facilities and country clubs. Players pile into rideshares after tournaments, sweaty and focused on post-game conversations. The racket slides under a seat, or gets wedged behind the driver's position. Nobody notices until they're already home, realizing their $200 Wilson is cruising around town with a confused driver. Professional-grade rackets cost serious money. We're talking anywhere from $80 to $400 for high-end models. That price tag motivates people to actually report their loss, unlike cheaper items that riders write off. The expensive strings alone can run $50 to restring. Then there's the sentimental attachment factor. Many players develop relationships with specific rackets, adjusting their grip and style over months of practice. Losing your lucky racket before a big match feels like losing part of your game. Some athletes refuse to play with backup equipment. Uber drivers in tennis-heavy cities like Miami, Los Angeles and New York report finding rackets weekly during summer months. The gear often comes with other forgotten items: water bottles, sweat towels, and those little cans of tennis balls. Most rackets do get reunited with their owners, mainly because they're expensive enough to justify the hassle of recovery. Plus, drivers can easily spot them during car cleanings. 101. Kids lose their Lego bricks in Ubers more than you'd expect. Those colorful plastic pieces have a sneaky way of rolling under seats, hiding in cup holders, and basically vanishing into the car's fabric like they're planning their own escape mission. Parents know the drill. 1 minute little Johnny has his entire collection. The next minute half the spaceship is missing somewhere between home and grandma's house. Well, here's the thing about Lego losses. They're not just random pieces getting left behind. We're talking about entire bags filled with carefully sorted bricks, half-built castles, and sometimes even those expensive specialty sets that cost more than some people's grocery budget. The worst part, those tiny pieces scatter everywhere once the bag tips over, creating what drivers call the Lego explosion. And the weird part is how this affects the whole family dynamic. Kids don't just forget a toy, they forget the foundation of their next big creation. That bag of bricks represents hours of future building, sorting, and playing. Parents frantically call Uber support because they know replacing those specific pieces isn't just expensive, it's nearly impossible. Then there's the driver's perspective on this chaos. Finding Lego bricks days later has become so common that some drivers keep small containers just for collecting the random pieces. Makes sense, right? Those little plastic rectangles have a talent for wedging themselves into the most impossible places. Some drivers joke that Lego bricks reproduce overnight, because they swear they find more pieces than passengers could have possibly